To get her father's attention, the girl jumped down the stairs. However, even when she was injured and bedridden, her father didn't come to see her. But she thought it was her own fault. Her father was so busy. It was understandable that he didn't come to see her. Although her mother passed away early, as the eldest daughter of the Parvis family, Hella was excellent from a young age. Not only did she get perfect scores in every subject, but she was also a God-appointed spirit master. However, the girl hailed as a genius had only one wish. That was to gain her father's love. But even when she brought her perfect test papers to her father, the man would only refuse to communicate with her, citing busy official duties. But even so, Kira still followed her father. 4 decades, without fail. Every morning, she would wake up without fail, striving to do everything well. Perhaps her father was naturally an indifferent person, so he didn't get close to her. However, on Kira's 18th birthday, a girl named Cosette appeared, completely shattering her understanding. She said she was the daughter of the former Duchess, which meant she was Kira's half-sister. The scene was in an uproar. The Duke had 2 daughters, but there was only one true spirit master. So between Kira and Cosette, one must be an impostor. For the Duke, who was his daughter, didn't matter. What mattered was who could sense the water spirit. After that, Cosette stayed at the Duke's mansion. Her approachable demeanor quickly won her many admirers, but only Kira knew what kind of face Cosette had beneath her gentle exterior. She would insult Kira's mother and engage in impropriety when no one was around. After Kira retaliated, she would act weak and pitiful, gaining sympathy from the servants. She even caused the Duke to talk to her. Kira stated that she had done nothing wrong, and it was fine to scold her. But insulting her mother was unforgivable. But her muddle-headed father seemed to be on Cosette's side. He suspected Kira's mother of being unfaithful. Gradually, rumors began to spread. Miss Cosette had blonde hair and red eyes, just like the Duke himself. In contrast, Miss Kira had snow-white black hair, looking nothing like the Duke. Cosette's personal maid even openly mocked Kira to her face, saying she was the impostor. A mere maid dared to publicly slander the Duke's daughter. Hella slapped her so hard she cried for her mother. But that wasn't enough. To warn Cosette, that maid was publicly whipped 100 times and then expelled. Unexpectedly, Cosette colluded with other servants and went to the Duke, accusing Kira first. Her father didn't listen to her explanation at all, and even slapped her, although the man had always been cold to her. He had never hit her before. She had been by his side for 18 years, so why did he believe an outsider? Watching Kira being punished, Cosette smiled maliciously. She wanted to take everything from Kira. Originally, she desperately tried to please her father, but it led to a tragic death. After being reborn, she decided to never be a bootlicker again. All that fatherly love and family affection could go to the dogs. She only wanted to stay by the side of those who loved her. She solemnly told her father that she would no longer come to pay respects, and she would resign from her position as the Knight Commander. Addressing him as Duke, with every sentence, she left the man before her stunned. Was this still the little shadow who used to follow him around? But Kira didn't seem to intend to seek his opinion. Her attitude was resolute, and she left after speaking. He should have been angry at his daughter's unreasonableness, but for some reason, he sat there motionless. His mind was filled with last night's dream. Kira was beheaded right in front of him. It felt as real as if he had been there himself. In the empty study, the man sat in silence for a long time. Meanwhile, Kira was carrying out her last task as commander. Today was the new recruits exam. She and the vice commander needed to oversee it. Actually, she had another purpose for coming here. That was to apologize to Vice Commander Joseph. She became commander due to family tradition, while Joseph earned it through his own abilities. Due to her insecurity, in her past life, she often clashed with Joseph. Now she realized how unreasonable she had been. She always thought the man disliked her. Who could have guessed? In the last second of her life, Joseph was still defending her. She sincerely apologized to him for both the past and present. She admitted she was actually jealous of him, which was why she always found fault with him. But that wouldn't happen anymore. These words caught the man off guard. He had thought the young lady disliked him, but it turned out that wasn't the case. After the new recruits exam results came out, Kira left on her own accord. According to tradition, there would be a welcome party at this time. In reality, it was just people eating, drinking, and singing excessively. She used to attend in the past, but she could clearly feel that when she was there, everyone was uncomfortable. So this time, she decided not to go. Unexpectedly, Joseph chased after her. He anxiously asked why she wasn't going. Kira hesitated for a second, then expressed her concerns. Plus, she had already resigned from her position as commander. This greatly upset Joseph. He thought they had done something wrong and hurt the young lady's feelings. But Kira explained it wasn't like that. She always knew she got the position through connections, not ability. It was normal for people not to like her. However, Joseph looked at her seriously. The family head's child inheriting the commander position is a long-standing tradition. It's your rightful place. Moreover, you're a once-in-a-century genius. Everyone has always been proud of you. Please don't belittle yourself anymore. Joseph's words left her in a daze for a long time. She always thought no one acknowledged her, so in her past life, she armored herself like a hedgehog. After all, except for her father, she didn't care about anyone else. She had been wrong. She wasn't actually alone. She had her brother, Roger, and companions who were proud of her. She stood up and slowly walked towards Joseph. Let's go. Everyone's waiting for us, aren't they? This time, she wouldn't miss anyone's sincerity. To gain her father's approval, she excelled in everything. A genius girl admired by all, yet her father dismissed her. In the end, he even killed Kira for a fake daughter. So she hated him. She resented that man, colder than anyone else, unfit to be a father. To make him come see her, Kira even jumped down the stairs. He still remained unmoved. From childhood, she had always harbored this resentment. So at the welcome party, she expressed her inner grievances for the first time. Why wouldn't he come to see me? She was as fragile as a child. Her companions around her all echoed in agreement. That's too much. How could they bully our young lady like this? Seeing people speak up for her, she laughed through her tears. She never realized everyone was so lovable. This feeling of being acknowledged felt so good. As a result, she accidentally got drunk. The brother who danced the most enthusiastically was even kicked by Deputy Commander Joseph. How could you let the young lady drink so much? Although scolded, to be fair, the commander is so cute, so different from before. And a certain man, at some point, secretly blushed. The young lady had just fallen into his arms. How improper. The next day, Kira woke up with a splitting hangover, but being with everyone was truly enjoyable. At noon, Kira sat reading in the courtyard. Yassi from the night order suddenly appeared behind her. He was running an errand for Joseph. Worried about Kira's hangover, he had specially made honey water. After thanking him, she dismissed the maid nearby. She asked Yassi, "How can I make more friends?" Although she had attended balls before, people seemed unwilling to interact with her. She wondered if she wasn't doing something right. Yassi told her it wasn't like that. Just smile more, and everyone will want to be close to you. The boy's words made her realize. It seemed she often had a stern face. Later, Yassi taught her many social skills. People with common interests tend to get along better. Kira took note of everything. Now she had all the time in the world. She wanted to live a completely new life. She wondered what other noble ladies usually like to do. She asked Roger behind her. He said he wasn't sure either, but romance novels talked about such things. Would you like to read one, my lady? For someone who used to only read academic books, this was certainly a good attempt, but she didn't expect that a romance novel would make her blush so much. What on earth was this? Was this something a proper lady like her should read? To punish herself, Kira decided to read one more chapter. This turned into an all-night reading session. When Roger came to wake her up, she hurriedly hid the book behind her back. She would never admit she liked such books. But Roger seemed to see right through his young lady's tsundere act. He casually mentioned, "Actually, this novel has an extra chapter. Would you like to read it, my lady?" Her of course was almost instinctive. Realizing what she'd said, she quickly covered her mouth. Oh no, her reputation was ruined now. When his daughter used to chase after him, he wouldn't even look back. Now that she no longer bothered him, he started to miss it. Isn't this just being sick? In the past, whenever she went out, he would always see her off at the door. But now he hadn't seen her for what felt like thousands of years. The butler told him that the young lady had been investigating traces of elves lately, so she was extremely busy. The man's mind was suddenly in a muddle. She would awaken her elven abilities sooner or later anyway, so why be in such a hurry now? Recently, he had been having a strange dream. In the dream, he killed Kira with his own hands. Thinking about this, his head started to throb again. Perhaps it was just a hallucination from being too tired. But what he didn't know was that all of those things had actually happened. This was the real reason why Kira distanced herself from him. She would never forgive this murderer. To prevent the guillotine tragedy from happening again, she had to find a reliable helper. After weighing the pros and cons, her maternal grandfather, Marquis Simon, was the most suitable candidate. This man was both vicious and greedy, always wanting to use her and her brother for his own gain. If Kira took the initiative to extend an olive branch, the old man probably wouldn't refuse. Said and done. She handed the written letter to Roger, instructing him to deliver it personally. Now she just needed to wait for a suitable opportunity to meet with her grandfather. Attending the same banquet was undoubtedly the best way. She intended to choose one from the many invitations, but was informed by the butler that all invitations for her had been thrown away. Their argument attracted the Duke. Learning that his daughter planned to attend a banquet, the terrible father's face immediately fell. The Parvis family is chosen by the goddess. We've always remained neutral. You suddenly want to appear in social circles. Aren't you afraid of misinterpretations? Indeed, at any time, father only cared about the family's reputation. He never considered what his daughter actually wanted. Kira said she had come of age, and it was time to look for a marriage partner, so she needed to attend banquets. Hearing this, the terrible father looked very troubled. Seeing this, the girl was puzzled. Don't you not care about whatever I do? Suddenly curious about my movements. This really isn't like your style, Duke. Being mocked by his daughter like this. The man had no face to stay any longer. He said, "I agree," and quickly fled the scene. However, as soon as he left, he ordered the butler to watch Kira's every move. Who she met and what she ate should all be reported. This small episode didn't affect Kira's mood, but seeing the maids outside chattering, she also wanted to join them. Unfortunately, she couldn't let go of her pride. Admittedly, in this aspect, she really couldn't compare to Cosette, who could mingle effortlessly among various people. Thinking of her past life, Cosette mocked her, always putting on airs of nobility, made seeing her like cats seeing mice, resulting in her being isolated by everyone in the end. Perhaps she needed to try to change. Originally, she was graceful and kind, yet ended up losing her head. After being reborn, she decided to let herself go. All the constraints of being a noble lady, she tossed them aside. She wanted to live however she felt comfortable. Not only did she stay up all night reading 18+ novels, but she also agreed to her friend's suggestion of a one-day casino trip. But just as everyone was about to leave, her brother Jack stopped her. "At this hour, sister, you're still going out to play?" For some reason, Kira felt like she'd been caught doing something bad. But then she remembered that going to casinos was legal in the Empire, so she quickly relaxed again. Considering that her brother seemed to have never gone out since he was born, Hella tentatively asked if he wanted to go out with them. Hearing this, Jack got excited like a 200-pound fat man, his little legs pitter-pattering as he ran out. Of course he wanted to go. However, when he learned the destination was a casino, Jack jumped higher than a monkey. "Oh my, have you all gone mad? How can you take sister to such a mixed place?" Kira held him down while trying to persuade him, saying they were just going to look around and broaden their horizons, not actually play. Jack nodded obediently like a little chick. Unexpectedly, once they arrived, Kira changed completely. She declared she would try every game mode there, and her luck was no joke. She went on her first try. Having tasted success, Kira was thrilled. "This is so much fun." She got up and moved to the next table. In no time, Kira had won a big bag full of chips. Lena cheered, asking the young lady to treat them. But Ashy beside her had a constipated expression. He felt something was off. The young lady's luck was unbelievably good. Just as he was about to warn Kira, a waiter nearby handed over a note. It said the Count wanted to play a big game with her. Sure enough, someone had seen Kira win so much and was envious. This was clearly an attempt to take the young lady's money. Ashy excitedly tried to persuade her. "We don't need to pay attention to him." But Kira found it interesting. It was like someone challenging her to a duel. She grabbed a small handful, thinking this should be enough to deal with the Count. The rest she'd keep to treat everyone to a good meal. Everyone stared at her in disbelief. With so much money, were they planning to eat gold? The noble lady's first crush encountered a high-level player. She thought she had met her soulmate, but in the eyes of that scoundrel, she was just a small loach in the vast ocean. This all stemmed from the classic move of the player, heroic rescue. During Kira's gambling match with the Count, as expected, she was cheated by the cunning old Count. Just as Kira was about to make a scene, the blonde guy rushed out. The man's domineering appearance instantly captured the girl's heart. She felt like the female protagonist in a novel, perfectly encountering her Prince Charming. However, Neither her brother Jack nor her protector Joseph thought that guy looked like a good person. They both urged Kira to go home quickly. But how could the player easily let go of such a good opportunity? He invited Kira for a couple of drinks. The girl, experiencing her first love, naturally agreed to his request. Faced with wave after wave of flattery from the blonde guy, Kira's little heart was pounding, looking at the little lamb who had already fallen into the trap. The blonde guy pressed his advantage and set up their next meeting time. Fortunately, although Kira was naive, she didn't tell the man her real name. She hoped her first love would be pure and flawless. Little did she know everything was all planned by the player. The chance encounter, the heroic rescue, were just means to get close to Kira. Even after returning home, Kira was still immersed in the recent blissful experience. She excitedly shared today's happiness with Roger. But Roger was worried that his young lady might be deceived. Hella told him he was overthinking. She planned to pretend to be a country girl first. Once her relationship with the blonde guy was stable, she would reveal her true identity. Even for a more perfect date on Wednesday, she planned to rent out the entire theater. But Roger told her that a country girl wouldn't have money to rent an entire theater. After hearing this, Kira pondered for 3 years. She finally came up with a good idea: to rent a yacht instead. This way, no one would disturb them. The more she thought about it, the happier she became. She excitedly rolled back and forth on the bed. Soon, the day of the date arrived. Because she had to play the role of a country girl, Kira could only say goodbye to her beloved dress. But as soon as she saw Aiden, she ran faster than a rabbit. The man's sweet words left her in a daze. Compared to Kira's happiness, the eyes of the 4 protectors in the distance could kill. Lena had already investigated thoroughly. That blonde guy was just a scoundrel who flirted with girls everywhere. Yasi suggested scaring the man to make him back off. But Jack said why bother with that effort? Just beat him up and be done with it. Seeing the blonde's hand about to touch Kira's waist, Joseph instantly jumped up in anger. I'm going to fight that bastard. The daughter who used to treasure him now wouldn't even look at him properly. If he didn't actively seek her out, she might have forgotten she even had a father. At first, when Kira said she wouldn't come to pay respects, he didn't mind. After all, no matter how cold he was to her before, she would always greet him with a smile. When did things start to change? The man couldn't figure it out. At this moment, the butler handed him an airship payment bill. He smiled wryly. You must have delivered this to the wrong person. He didn't remember using such a thing recently. However, the butler told him it was rented by Miss Kira, and she used it alone with a gentleman. The young lady seems to be in love. The butler's hesitant expression shocked the father so much he dropped everything. His little cabbage had been snatched by a pig, so that's why she had been indifferent to him lately. It was because she had a lover. In a fit of anger, he went to find Kira. He got straight to the point. Are you dating a young nobleman? Upon hearing this, Kira's hair stood on end. They hadn't reached that stage yet. She frantically told her scumbag father not to talk nonsense. But her blushing cheeks had already betrayed her. The man stood there dumbfounded. He knew very well that Kira's expression right now was one only a girl experiencing first love would have. He was about to question why she chose that boy when he was dismissed by his daughter. For some reason, seeing the scumbag father's discomfiture, I actually felt a bit sorry for him. But Kira, who had sent away her scumbag father, was very happy. She was choosing an evening gown for tonight's party. She had originally asked Aiden to be her dance partner, but the man had to attend a book club, so he refused her. Fortunately, Joseph was willing to accompany her. Dressed in a red gown, Kira looked as beautiful as an angel. Her protector, Joseph, was so captivated his eyes nearly fell out. Luckily, he caught himself in time, preventing Kira from noticing his love-struck moment. The Duke's daughter's appearance at the ball left everyone present pleasantly surprised. After all, her elven family was one that even the royal family had to show respect to. But Kira suddenly felt socially anxious. Oh my, except for Joseph, she didn't know anyone here. Faced with greetings from the Marquis and his wife, she could only respond with incoherent mumbles. The man beside her noticed her discomfort, thoughtfully helped her out of the situation, and then took her aside for some air. While Joseph went to prepare some refreshments, Kira went to see her grandfather. This was actually her main purpose for attending the party today. Although she planned to personally execute Zet, to avenge her beheading in her previous life, just to be safe, she still asked her grandfather to prepare a hiding place for her. This way she could act without worries. After all, her father definitely wouldn't look after her. As expected, the old man agreed to her request. Because they were not just blood relatives, she was also her grandfather's trump card for expanding his influence. Kira was well aware of this. In her previous life, she hadn't thought of these things and lost her life in vain. Fortunately, it wasn't too late now. Having resolved the issue, Kira was about to leave when she saw a shocking scene. Her beloved was now embracing another woman. A noble lady's first appearance in society turned into a major scene of catching a cheater. The man who was supposed to be at a book club was now hugging another woman, whispering sweet nothings. How could Kira's fiery temper tolerate this? With one high kick, she jumped straight down from the 500-meter-high balcony, scaring her grandfather so much his dentures fell out. However, Kira had no time to deal with him. With a determined stride, she walked up behind the scumbag. "What are you doing?" She grabbed the scumbag like a chicken, lifting him up. The knights who rushed over hearing the commotion were initially worried their young lady was being bullied. Now they realized their concern was unnecessary. The scumbag, whose good time was interrupted, wanted to spout nonsense. But when he turned and saw Kira's ice-cold face, he was so scared he didn't dare speak. Kira threw him on the ground like trash. She demanded an explanation from the scumbag, but he said there was nothing to explain. He wanted to do some naughty things with the person he liked. Was that wrong? Did he need to explain that to her? While making excuses, he didn't forget to flirt with the purple-haired girl. If she wasn't held back, Kira really wanted to kick him to death. However, that shameless guy suddenly laughed. "We just had a few meals together. How come you fell in love with me just like that? You're too easy, aren't you?" Watching the scumbag spout nonsense, Kira couldn't hold back anymore. Even though she had never been in love before, she was certain that what the scumbag had said to her, the actions he had done, weren't those the signs of pursuing a girl? But he just wanted to play around while she had fallen for it. If that's the case, she might as well give him a few more slaps to make up for her efforts these days. After dealing with the scumbag, Kira's tears fell uncontrollably. She had thought she could have a passionate romance, but it ended before it even began. However, she wasn't one to dwell on things, especially with a bunch of friends by her side. Wiping away her tears, Kira accepted Joseph's invitation to dance. She wouldn't get angry over someone like that. The two spun in the center of the dance floor. She just realized that Joseph was actually quite handsome, and his occasional glances had already stirred up some men's hearts. With a turn, their eyes met again accidentally. Joseph's face instantly turned as red as a tomato. Look, Kira, your destiny is here." This maid who grew up with a silver spoon actually had troubles she couldn't speak of. That is, she didn't have a single friend. As the next spirit master, Kira was the center of attention, but was also destined to be lonely. She excelled in various aspects, but her social skills were basically zero. So she had almost no friends from childhood to adulthood. Watching other noble ladies at the ball in groups, chatting happily, Kira could only envy them in her heart. She really didn't know how to fit in with them. Her brother Jack's birthday ball was coming up soon. She didn't want to stand there awkwardly like before. So she mustered up her courage and asked Daphne, the helpful young lady, for advice. How could she make friends? After hearing her troubles, Daphne didn't show any sign of mockery, but patiently explained to her the topics noble ladies like to talk about. Kira carefully noted them down. She could talk eloquently about national affairs, but when it came to social activities, she was clueless. Fortunately, Daphne told her everything in detail. They even agreed to go to the princess's salon together. It seemed that as long as she took the initiative, making friends wasn't that difficult. Meanwhile, the princess who received the notice from the Duke's mansion was furious. She had sent Kira an invitation, but that was because she thought she wouldn't come. Recalling their last encounter at the ball, she, a noble princess, had condescended to speak to her, but Kira not only ignored her, but also looked hostile. Still, she had thick-skinned complimented her dress. After all, both her brother and father had always admonished her to maintain good relations with the Spirit Master family. However, Kira found her annoying, nearly infuriating her on the spot. She was still resentful about it now. Just because she's a Spirit Master, does she think she's so great? Abella complained to her brother about her dissatisfaction. However, the man told her not to mind these things. Take this opportunity to see what the Duke's family's intentions are. Miss Kira, who usually keeps a low profile, has attended 2 balls in a row. There must be something behind this. Abella looked aggrieved. Even if she was unwilling, she had to listen to her brother. The old father, who also learned the news, was equally anxious, learning that his daughter had discovered the true face of the scumbag. He was quite happy at first, but now she was going to attend another ball. Was she so eager to marry out of the Duke's mansion? Before, when he had a high fever of 900 degrees, his father didn't even come to check on him. Now he wanted to talk to him every few days. It was really strange, and just now, the butler came to relay a message, saying that the Duke wanted to see him. Actually, Kira was reluctant inside, but thinking that there was something only her father could help with now, she compromised. She thought the Duke was calling her this time about her tearing into the scumbag at the ball last time. After all, it didn't sound good to talk about it, but she had already thought about how to refute. Unexpectedly, the man had prepared a table full of eggs early, waiting for her. What was this move? Did he want to eat and talk? It was too strange, and she could clearly feel that the man opposite seemed very anxious. Sure enough, the next second she heard him asking about marriage prospects. Kira impatiently said she knew what she was doing. The Duke immediately shut up tactfully. As the head of the Parvis family, it was destined that he couldn't interfere too much in the children's private affairs. After hesitating for a long time, he suppressed everything he wanted to say. Taking this opportunity, Kira frankly said she wanted to visit her aunt. The man drooped his head, saying he'd notify her when the time was set. Seeing her goal achieved, Kira prepared to get up and leave. She didn't think she and her father had the kind of relationship where they could eat cake and chat. Moreover, she noticed that the Duke looked very unhappy today, but she didn't care about him anymore. Whether he was happy or not, she just wanted to meet her aunt quickly. In the 2 weeks since her rebirth, she had researched various materials to understand spirits, but still gained little. So she pinned her hopes on her aunt. She was the only remaining spirit master. When she was young, it was her aunt who enlightened her about spirit knowledge. She had even seen Beatrice's spirit with her own eyes. She needed to figure out why. When the divine oracle said there was only one spirit master, but she and Cosette could both see the water spirit. If she wasn't fake, then who was Cosette? These questions could only be answered when she met her aunt. Perhaps the mystery could be solved then. Early the next morning, Hella and Daphne appeared outside the palace. Today was the day of the princess's salon. The princess looked anxious. She had a bit of a headache. She and Kira had never gotten along well. She didn't know if today's salon would go smoothly, but she had heard rumors. Hella had lived in the Duke's mansion for a long time. She knew nothing about fashion. Today she would dampen her spirits. The most embarrassing little secret was discovered by someone who disliked her. Her face turned red like an eggplant, but the princess thought she had ulterior motives. The noble Duke's daughter actually carried a cheat sheet. Although it only contained some fashion trends and gossip, things definitely weren't that simple. Could she be trying to exchange information with someone? Abella jumped to conclusions, but Kira told her that she prepared it because she was afraid of not being able to join the conversation at the salon. Hearing this, Abella was shocked. So that was its purpose. But as a noble lady, did Kira really not understand these things at all? She still didn't quite believe it. Besides, they weren't very familiar. Her sudden attendance at her salon must have another purpose. Even if, as she just said, it was to find a marriage partner, she should have gone to a ball instead. That's where the men were. However, the next second, Kira's answer made her cough up old phlegm. Had she heard wrong? The Duke's daughter, famous for being proud and cold, actually wanted to make friends? And she even smiled and thanked her, saying today's salon was very enjoyable. Abella completely lost it. Her head was almost touching Kira's face. Don't lie to me. The way you looked at us was so fierce. How could that possibly mean you wanted to be friends? Compared to Abella's excited gesticulating, the girl opposite showed little emotional change. She helplessly covered her face. That's because I don't have much expression to begin with. Her innocent look made Abella blush. Was this still that fierce Duke's daughter? She suddenly understood. So all along, Kira had never looked down on her at all. It was all her own imagination. How embarrassing. She collapsed on the sofa, like a cooked shrimp. Remembering that Kira was still here, she immediately sat up. I have a bit of a headache, so I won't see you out. This was definitely the most awkward day in the princess's history. Kira took a deep breath as she walked out of the palace. She almost made a fool of herself. Daphne, beside her, after learning she was all right, eagerly invited her to attend the family's anniversary party. You want to get married, right? I'll arrange for many talented young men to be there. She had the air of taking Kira's happiness in her own hands. At this moment, Kira didn't know that the questions about her time travel were about to be answered. For the sake of his fake daughter, her father had personally sent her to the guillotine. She thought she would surely die, but miraculously came back to life. To avoid repeating the same mistakes, she decided to make changes. Fatherly love and family affection were not in her consideration. Even her grandfather, whom she hadn't contacted for centuries, was more reliable than her trash father. So she swallowed her pride and formed an alliance with him, even to confuse others. She brought the vice captain to attend a friend's family party. Then she boldly declared she would greet Naish. This scene was witnessed by the princess from afar, who was greatly shocked. She didn't expect Kira to come as well. Looking at the gloomy smile on Kira's face, the princess involuntarily shuddered. But thinking that their previous misunderstanding had been resolved, she wanted to try to improve her relationship with Kira and invited her to meet her friends. Unexpectedly, Kira agreed so readily. With the princess's help, Kira successfully integrated into their conversation. But she didn't know she had already been targeted. A blonde, blue-eyed, ugly guy entered the party. He was Daphne's brother. Ares came here specifically for Kira. Under Daphne's guidance, he saw Kira chatting. The next second, an image flashed in his mind. Looking at Kira, he gradually felt a sense of familiarity. Just as he was about to go investigate, he was pulled back by Daphne. Ares' eyes flashed with electricity as he looked at Daphne with dissatisfaction. She was so frightened that she stood there helplessly, frozen in place. Then Ares walked behind Kira. He whispered in her ear, "You've come back in time. Why didn't you find me first?" Hela was shocked. Time travel was her biggest secret. How could anyone know? Looking at the man before her, those painful memories flashed through her mind one by one. She could even feel the clear pain on her neck. Stumbling, Hela almost fell. It was Joseph who quickly caught her. "Who are you? And what do you want with the Duke's daughter?" But faced with Joseph's questioning, Ares remained calm. "I just wanted to have a word with her. I think the Duke's daughter would agree." The scene changes. The two came to the reception room. Hela got straight to the point, asking him what he knew. The man directly demonstrated a resurrection for her. In the blink of an eye, he could make a fresh flower wither instantly. It turns out, it was Ares who used time reversal magic to save her. However, this kind of magic requires two people to operate. One caster, and one to keep the memories from before the time travel. But now something was clearly wrong. Hela still had memories of her past life, but she wasn't the one who cast the spell with Ares. This was all utterly confusing. The fatherly love she couldn't get in her past life, no matter how hard she tried. She now didn't care for it. Unexpectedly, the more distant she was, the more her father cared about her. Seeing his daughter leave, only saying goodbye to her brother, ignoring his greetings completely, he was left feeling sad and dejected. But late-coming affection is worth less than grass. Who would care? Hela sat comfortably in the carriage. She had to find clues about the elves before Zed appeared. After a bumpy journey, Kira finally met her elegant aunt. "You've been coming quite often lately." Faced with her aunt's teasing, she smiled shyly. Her aunt was stunned. Was this still her little niece, who always had a stern face? But they quickly returned to business. Her aunt took her to a secret room. Here were notes from generations of elf masters. These things might be helpful to you. In the evening, Kira sat in her room, flipping through those materials. Yet she had no clue until a diary caught her attention. In 678 BC, the Parvis family also had two daughters born at the same time. The blonde sister awakened at 18 years old, while the red-haired sister, even at 30 years old, still hadn't awakened. She endured endless rumors because of this. She was even suspected of not being of the family's bloodline. She only dared to stay in her room all day. Until one day, her blonde sister appeared in her room. When they made physical contact, the red-haired sister saw Elle for the first time. Reading this, Kira was shocked. She suddenly remembered when she was in the prison cell. Cosette also had contact with her, and then blue elves appeared around them. Kira contained her excitement and continued reading. It turns out this phenomenon is called resonance. Only sisters of the Parvis family can achieve this. Soon after, that red-haired sister awakened. She finally walked out of her room with her head held high. At this moment, Kira could no longer hold back. Tears fell drop by drop onto the paper. Before, she had been denying Cosette's identity, while also worrying if she herself was the family's biological child. Now she could finally be at ease. She no longer needed to struggle internally. She would become an elf master sooner or later. But what about the prophecy? Clearly, both she and Cosette could see elves, yet it said there was only one true elf master. Amidst all these doubts, Hella fell into a deep sleep. She didn't notice at all that outside the window stood a blonde girl with red eyes, gazing at the room where Kira was. Her evil smile sent chills down one's spine. The wheels of Cosette's fate began to turn again. To claim her heritage, the fake daughter led the charge to cause a scene. Meeting her father for the first time, "I am your daughter." Cosette's thick golden hair and tomato-colored eyes made her look exactly like the Duke to anyone who saw her. She deliberately chose Kira's brother's birthday to do this in front of everyone, intending to ruin Kira completely. However, this time she was disappointed. The Duke only gave her a cold look. We'll discuss this later. He didn't publicly acknowledge her. This completely deviated from the previous life's plot. Kira stood there, unable to come to her senses for a long time. At this moment, the man called her name. "Kira, as the Duke's daughter, what's your opinion? After the banquet, come to my study. Publicly acknowledge her identity." Is he trying to help her silence the rumors? But soon Kira understood. Perhaps father just wanted to prevent Parvis from becoming a laughingstock. After all, in his eyes, family interests were above everything else. Jack was afraid she'd be hurt and kept defending her vehemently. That actually made her laugh. "Today is your day. Don't be gloomy. Go play with your good friends." After sending Jack away, he was about to have some quiet time when the blonde leader approached. He was supposed to leave the capital the day after the family party. But to talk more with Kira, he deliberately waited until now. "Miss Kira, don't worry. That woman clearly isn't up to any good. As a magician, my intuition tells me you're the real spirit master." The sudden comfort made Kira's ears turn red. "Can you move away a bit? Being this close is embarrassing." The blonde obediently stepped back, but his eyes never left Kira. Sure enough, the next day rumors spread throughout the Duke's mansion. Everyone seemed to believe Cosette was the family's daughter, but Kira didn't care at all. If she couldn't avoid it, she'd face it head on. So when she heard the Duke's summons, she appeared in the study immediately. She thought her father had already made a choice between her and Cosette. But unexpectedly, the man asked for her opinion first. Though a bit unbelievable, she still honestly expressed her thoughts. She was very unhappy. Since Cosette's arrival, she had been at the center of rumors. But as long as Cosette had the ability to summon spirits, this wouldn't change. It's better to be open about it, so we can monitor her every move. Whatever decision you make, I won't oppose it. But one thing won't change. I believe my mother would never do anything to disgrace the family. Hearing Kira's words, the Duke was silent for a long time, then carefully asked, "Is there any meaning in temporarily accepting Cosette?" Of course not, she thought. But there was one thing she didn't understand. Why was the man now looking to her for approval? The real daughter's first confrontation, full of tension and hostility. Since Cosette entered the mansion, she's been walking around with a smile, trying to chat with everyone. Gradually, everyone lowered their guard around her. Only Kira knew that the team master was up to something again. But she wasn't afraid at all. Compared to her previous life, this time she received care from many friends. Even the unfamiliar blonde gave her a magic ring for protection. Everyone's concern made Kira feel warm and full of strength. Thinking about the good show about to unfold, Kira couldn't help feeling excited. She came alone to the knight's order to practice swordsmanship. If she wasn't mistaken, Cosette wouldn't miss the chance to be alone with her. Sure enough, just as she finished warming up, the little green tea arrived uninvited, holding fresh flowers. Knowing she was practicing swordsmanship, Cosette still deliberately approached Kira. How could she not give a warning to liven things up? Swords have no eyes. You'd better stay away from me. Such a straightforward rejection. Yet the little green tea just couldn't understand. She still shamelessly expressed her desire to be friends with Kira. Kira only responded with a cold look, not wanting to waste another word on her. However, the green tea started crying pitifully. "I just wanted to be friends with you. Why did you hurt me?" Unexpectedly, after all this acting, Kira didn't react at all. Cosette immediately changed her attitude, sarcastically implying that Kira was and hypocritically stating that even so, she wouldn't look down on Kira. She thought Kira would surely break down hearing this. However, the girl just turned her head and smiled at her. You're so stupid. Just because people say you look like the Duke, you think you're really the Duke's daughter? You're so pitiful. But don't worry too much. It's not your fault you look like this. If the truth comes out one day, I'll plead for you before the royal family. Hearing this, Cosette almost flew into a rage from embarrassment. These should have been her lines. Anyone could see that she and the Duke father both had black blonde hair and green red eyes. The one who should be kicked out of this family should be Kira. However, the girl laughed disdainfully. If you didn't look alike, how could you have been chosen by others? Cosette was left speechless. At this moment, the servants attending to her also came looking. Seeing the maid's anxious expressions, Kira deliberately said in a gentle tone, "Look, everyone's worried about you. Next time, don't wander around like this." With just a few words, she established an image of being understanding in front of the maids. Cosette could only clench her teeth in anger. She had no choice but to return with the maids first. Meanwhile, Kira, who remained behind, wore the smile of a victor. After the fake daughter failed to provoke the real daughter, she set her sights on Kira's maid. She knew well that Emily, of lowly status, desperately wanted to climb the social ladder, especially with her own successful case as an example. She beamed with a radiant pig-like face. Then she sat down next to Emily in a friendly manner. "If you wore these clothes, you'd surely look beautiful too." With a few words, Emily was indeed moved. If she could be like Miss Cosette, wearing pretty clothes, maybe others would look at her differently too. So when Cosette invited her to go shopping together on the weekend, she not only didn't refuse, but even started looking forward to it. Who doesn't want to be superior to others? So she went to ask Kira for permission. At first, she found it a bit difficult to bring up, as everyone knew the relationship between the young lady and Cosette was awkward. But she didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, Kira immediately agreed. "Why so nervous? Emily, I hope you have fun." It wasn't until she left Kira's room that she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't expect the young lady to be so easy to talk to. Little did she know, this comment was overheard by the maid Roger. He couldn't believe it. She would betray the young lady? Knowing full well that Cosette was no good, she still sided with the enemy. How ungrateful. Emily stepped back repeatedly when confronted, accidentally revealing a shiny golden bracelet. Just as Roger was about to ask where it came from, Emily made an excuse and ran away guiltily. Now Roger understood everything. This shameless person had abandoned Miss Kira for some small favors. Little did they know, all of this was seen by Cosette, who had secretly followed. This is getting more and more interesting. "Hella, are you ready to accept my grand gift?" Later at lunch, everyone followed the rule of not speaking while eating, quietly having their meal. Only Cosette was trying to make conversation, attempting to liven up the atmosphere. "Oh my, this dish simply melts in the mouth. It's the first time I've eaten such delicious food." Hella couldn't help but admire her thick skin. She could still perform in such an awkward situation. Then Cosette suggested visiting her aunt. The Duke initially didn't approve of bothering relatives without reason. However, Cosette foolishly stated that visiting relatives doesn't need a reason. Families should care for each other often. The Duke was convinced by her words. Kira immediately expressed that she wanted to go too. How could she let Cosette be alone with her aunt? Who knows what foolish things she might do? Besides, she grew up with her aunt since childhood, so she should fulfill her duties as a host. The implication was clear. You, impostor, will be out of the picture sooner or later. Considering the Duke was still present and unable to openly confront Kira, Cosette could only smile awkwardly. Then Kira mentioned that Cosette didn't have a personal maid. Since no one volunteered, they should take turns serving her. Cosette's face darkened instantly. How could she find excuses to win over the maids now? She immediately complained to the Duke, asking why her sister could make decisions for her. The Duke couldn't be bothered with such trivial matters. He left without another word. Hella smiled triumphantly. "See?" The Duke agreed. "I'll arrange maids for you right away. If they don't serve you well, just let me know. But since you grew up in harsh conditions, you probably won't find their service lacking, right?" In an instant, tension filled the air between them, thick with hostility. Finally, Cosette couldn't hold back her anger. She turned and left in a huff. Her brother Jack was thoroughly impressed by his sister's actions. Kira's favorite thing in both lives was to provoke Cosette. Seeing her disgruntled yet helpless expression was extremely satisfying. But tomorrow would be even more interesting. During the hunt, the roles of hunter and prey can change in an instant. When Cosette heard that Kira was sneaking to the basement, she could no longer suppress her desire to cause trouble. She shouted "thief" in the corridor. The maids were clearly skeptical about this, but when they saw that the place where the key should be was empty, and there was no record of where the key had gone, Cosette couldn't help but smile wickedly, seeing her plot about to succeed. She had tricked Kira, saying that if she got the elf stone, she could use elf magic. She didn't expect this fool to actually go. By now, the basement door was completely surrounded. Cosette could hardly wait to see Kira's downfall. But as the door slowly opened, there was no sign of anyone. Cosette stepped forward, smugly shouting, "The entrance is completely surrounded. You'd better come out obediently." In her mind, she was saying, "Kira, come out and face your doom." Then, the sound of footsteps was heard. But the person who came out wasn't Kira, it was Roger. This made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Only Cosette had a constipated expression on her face. The sudden change made her lose her composure a bit. She questioned Roger in front of everyone, asking where Kira had gone. Was she still hiding inside, too afraid to come out? She shouted like a madwoman. The noisy commotion drew Madame Johann over. Cosette immediately acted obedient and apologized, but said someone was trying to steal the elf stone. She couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Roger suddenly panicked. He hurriedly stated that he didn't have the guts to steal such a thing. But when Cosette asked why he stole the key, Roger stammered and couldn't explain clearly. Seeing this, Cosette started to get riled up again. Sending a maid to such a place in the middle of the night was enough to prove Kira's ill intentions. At this moment, a voice came from the stairs. Everyone turned to look. They saw Kira walking down gracefully and calmly. She had originally asked Roger to help fetch some wine, but didn't expect this to happen. Kira shielded Roger behind her and stated that she had no need to covet the elf stone, because she could see it any time just by asking her aunt. However, Cosette looked eager and was about to say something to confirm, but quickly abandoned that thought, because this secret couldn't be revealed. She had planned to use the elf stone to test and disgrace Kira, but she didn't expect to make a fool of herself instead. Kira now looked innocent, saying she just wanted to drink. Why were they fixating on her? Hearing this, Cosette became agitated. How could someone steal a key just to drink? Did they think she was a complete idiot? However, the butler stated that he had given the key to Kira. He not only promised to keep it a secret for the young lady, but even the wine Roger took was his recommendation. Cosette was furious. Emily hadn't told her about this. She glanced towards Emily's position, cursing silently in her heart. Unexpectedly, Emily looked at her with a sly smile. She just wanted to frame her sister, but ended up shooting herself in the foot. Oh my, Cosette kept asking about my lady's affairs. So it was to frame the young lady. Emily's exaggerated voice successfully caused a commotion. Even Madame Johann began to doubt what exactly Cosette was trying to do. Moreover, her attitude towards the servants was also troublesome. In front of all the servants, she scolded Cosette. How could she make such a fuss over nothing? It was truly disappointing. At this moment, no matter how unwilling Cosette was, she could only grit her teeth and accept the scolding. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Who could have thought that all of this was within Kira's expectations? Emily was just a temporary small-time actress, using what others want as bait, making them work for you. This was Cosette's usual trick, but this time her cleverness backfired. Kira had long since woven a larger net waiting for her. When Roger learned the whole truth, he couldn't help but admire Emily's insight. But then again, if she couldn't even fool him, how could she fool Cosette? At this moment, Kira and her aunt were leisurely enjoying afternoon tea. Since last night, she hadn't seen Cosette wandering around aimlessly. She must be very frustrated now. As for Johann, when she learned that Cosette hadn't apologized to Kira yet, she couldn't help but frown. It was truly unreasonable. At first, she had thought that child was pitiful, having been lost for so long. Who knew she would not only target Kira, but also set her sights on the elf stone? Seeing her aunt's angry expression, Kira's lips curled into a smile. At least with her aunt, Cosette had no way forward now. Moreover, she now had outside help. That was the little blonde magician. As soon as she returned from her aunt's, the two met. After hearing about the basement incident from Kira, the blonde was even more convinced of his judgment. That woman was indeed no good. He emphasized again that Kira must wear the ring he gave her. This was the first time he had made a ring for a woman. If she was in danger, he would instantly teleport to her side. As he spoke, he couldn't help but touch Kira's small hand. Frightened, the woman's face changed color. She immediately withdrew her hand. "What are you doing, being so familiar? How dare you touch me? Besides, that ring is too big. She's a knight who needs to practice swordsmanship. Earrings would be more convenient." Unexpectedly, before she finished speaking, the blonde's hand mischievously caressed her face. "It seems I won't be able to leave without a beating today." Going behind her sister's back to find her brother-in-law. "Your sister is so hateful. Why don't you be with me instead?" Unexpectedly, this scene was witnessed by her sister. She really can't stay quiet, can she? If she's not bribing the citizens, she's going after her men. Kira hid behind a tree, watching Cosette still flirting shamelessly. She really wanted to rush over and slap her. However, Joseph's words left both him and Cosette stunned in place. "You're actually very jealous of Miss Kira, aren't you? That's why you're always causing so much trouble. But no matter what happens, I will always stand by Miss Kira's side. You should just go back and sleep it off." Having been rejected, Cosette left, cursing under her breath. And Kira, who had witnessed the whole process from behind, burst out laughing like a pig. Just thinking about Cosette's frustrated expression made her want to laugh. The commotion she made attracted Joseph. Seeing it was the object of his recent confession, the man's face and neck immediately turned red. "Miss, when did you arrive?" Kira, while stifling her laughter, comforted him. "It's all right, I understand. No need to explain." After the playful moment, they quickly returned to serious matters. Everyone hoped that Kira would return to her position as the knight commander. They couldn't let that impostor Cosette take advantage. The man's words made her ponder. When she first returned after transmigrating, she had thought everyone disliked her, so she voluntarily resigned to her father. But now she could clearly feel that people didn't seem to dislike her. They even supported her. So she decided to find the Duke to restore her position as commander. However, at this moment, her old father was sitting alone on the balcony, drinking to drown his sorrows. His mind was filled with today's conversation with the Emperor. To appease the Empire's citizens, either Kira or Cosette must die. But for some reason, in his recent dreams, he kept seeing images of Kira being sent to the guillotine. It was truly troubling. At this moment, Kira burst in. "I don't want to give up my position, Your Grace. You also don't want outsiders meddling in our family affairs, do you? Starting tomorrow, I want to return as the knight commander." Unexpectedly, the Duke readily agreed to her request. Surprised, Kira prepared to end the conversation. However, the Duke called out to her. "Why don't you call me father anymore?" In front of the old scumbag father, the daughter held another man's hand. He stood there stunned, no longer looking like he wanted to eat someone. Have they already progressed to this stage? Until they walked far away, the blonde was still complaining. "Your dad is too scary." Kira also felt it was a bit unusual. That man didn't care about him at all. Suddenly pulling this stunt, even he couldn't react. But the blonde didn't think so. "I think your dad actually likes you quite a bit. Otherwise, he wouldn't have that attitude towards him." Kira found it hard to believe. She shook her head vigorously. "I think you're really overthinking it. But what did you come to see me for?" Hearing this, the blonde reached into his pants pocket. It turned out to be a delicate, small earring. Compared to a ring, this might suit you better. Looking at the man's face up close, Kira felt her heart skip a beat. Stuttering, she couldn't speak for a long time. The blonde suddenly smiled. She was about to ask why he was grinning, when the man took her hand and pinched it lightly. "Today's task is complete. Looking forward to seeing you next time, Miss Kira." Then he disappeared from her sight. This person is really strange, always touching her. The next day was Kira's reinstatement as Knight Commander. To celebrate her return, everyone happily threw a party. Remembering how drunk she got last time, she drank quite a bit. This time, she was determined from the start not to repeat the same mistake. However, unable to resist others' enthusiasm, after just a few rounds, everyone was clearly tipsy. But the atmosphere was just right. The redhead shouted, swearing to always follow Kira. They would never acknowledge that impostor Cosette. Others chimed in agreement. Kira happily leaned on Joseph. She didn't notice the man's worthless expression behind her. Yet he still teased others. "Joseph, why are you blushing too? Is your alcohol tolerance not good?" The man whose thoughts were exposed could only lower his head and drink silently. "All right, I'll go out for some fresh air. I want to go too." The two blushing people came to the balcony. Afraid of the strong wind, the man draped his coat over Kira's shoulders. Who would have thought, in the previous life, due to misunderstandings, he and Joseph were always at odds? But the man supported him without any complaints. Joseph, can I ask you a question? Why from the past until now? Have you always been by my side? The ugly sister was just jealous. The younger sister was constantly causing trouble. She even sent her maid to eavesdrop on the Duke. It turned out the annual ritual was approaching. As the spirit master, the aunt was unwell and needed someone to replace her. For the chosen person, this was a very meaningful event. But if they messed it up, they would never be able to participate in temple activities again. He naturally preferred the familiar Kira. But the temple's stance was that both Duke's daughters were qualified to replace him. When Mina reported the news, she heard truthfully. Cosette couldn't contain her excitement. She was determined to win this ritual. Mina, you failed last time. This time, don't disappoint me again. He cupped Mina's face, continuing to paint a rosy picture for her. As long as she could become the only young lady of the Duke's mansion, she would bring her brother who was wandering outside and reunite their family. It must be said, Cosette was truly exceptional at manipulating people. Mina was now swearing to the heavens that she would do her utmost to help her succeed. This time, she must make a big splash at the temple. The next day, Cosette and Kira appeared simultaneously in the Duke's study. As soon as they met, there was a tense atmosphere. Cosette smiled on the surface, but inside she was cursing. Hella couldn't be bothered to engage with her. Securing the ritual position was the top priority. Unexpectedly, Cosette persisted. Hella had been countless times since childhood. She was also a Duke's daughter, but had never been once. This wasn't fair at all. The Duke was getting a headache from their argument. If that's the case, you both can go together. Cosette immediately hugged Hella excitedly. Are you crazy? Suddenly rushing over? Hella wanted to argue further, but feared that if the Duke chose Cosette instead, wouldn't that make her a joke? Reluctantly, she had to agree for both to go together. But can you let go of me first? Hella disgustedly patted her shoulders. Anyone watching would think they had a great relationship. Soon, the day of departure arrived. This should have been a joyous occasion, but not when sitting in the same carriage as Cosette, the mortal. She chattered nonstop along the way. Hella didn't want to engage. Her attitude was so obvious, yet this person still shamelessly kept trying to make conversation. It was truly exasperating. Fortunately, it wasn't long before they arrived at the temple. The construction here was identical to her memories. Recalling her aunt's instructions from her previous life, managing sacred beasts was quite troublesome. So when allocating tasks, Hella quickly chose the sacred objects. This way, the task of managing sacred beasts naturally fell to Cosette. They only needed to place the sacred beasts and objects in the prayer room and guard them well, until the last day of the ritual, when they would be burned as offerings to the goddess. This would be considered a perfect completion, but from what she knew, Cosette would never be that obedient. She must be planning something sinister. She had to stay vigilant, but Kira never expected that Cosette would make such a big move this time. In front of the priests, the green tea sister acted her heart out. She arrogantly thought that she was the ultimate elf master, not knowing she was about to be expelled from the temple. These days, Hella had been diligently guarding the sacred objects and busy copying prayer texts, while Cosette, that tea sister, was out trying to win people over. Roger was indignant on behalf of his mistress. Copying prayer texts was supposed to be a task for both of them. Why was it all dumped on the young lady alone? Kira covered her mouth, saying it wouldn't be good if others heard. Since Cosette loved to perform so much, she decided to go take a look. Seeing her arrive, Cosette immediately extended an invitation. These priestesses are very busy every day, unlike you who only needs to sit around. She understood the implication of these words. She just wanted to win over some low-ranking nuns and make everyone think she was unfriendly, using the same tactics every time. It's truly laughable. I wonder who it is that needs help copying prayer texts. Instead of spending time here helping others, you better focus on your own duties first. After all, this is an important ritual. Don't cause trouble everywhere like last time at Aunt's house. Be careful not to make a mess. Watching Kira's graceful figure walk away, Cosette stomped her feet in anger. Just you wait, Kira. Let's see how long you can stay smug. Finally, it was the last day of the ritual. Since confronting Cosette last time, she had behaved for a week. But Kira felt something was off. Just then, she had to go to the outer hall for the final ceremony. She had no choice but to leave the prayer room first. She instructed Roger not to leave unless absolutely necessary. Even if he had to go out, he must lock the door first. Unexpectedly, an accident still occurred. The temple caught fire. Everyone panicked and fled in all directions. Roger, concerned about Kira's safety, also ran out. When the master and servant returned, it was already too late. The sacred objects that should have been lying safely on the table were now shattered to pieces. Roger knelt on the ground, apologizing profusely. It was all his fault for being careless. The young lady had warned him, yet he still messed up. Kira stood silently to the side. She needed to find a solution. The broken objects couldn't be mended, and they couldn't be randomly replaced. What should she do? Unnoticed by anyone, in a hidden corner, Mina was happily walking back. Just now, she had done something that gave her great satisfaction. Kira must be very anxious right now. Ruining the ritual would not only incur the temple's wrath, but might also get her expelled by the Duke. The green tea sister intended to frame her sister, but ended up shooting herself in the foot. Not only did she fail to pin the blame for ruining the ritual on Kira, but she also lost her capable assistant Mina. Even her privileges in the temple were revoked. When the green tea sister was ready to watch Kira's downfall, the situation had taken a turn. Thanks to her aunt, Kira had known for a long time that there was a secret passage in the temple. While everyone was busy with the oath-taking, Mina brought over the sacred beast, the little fox. Upon seeing the shattered pieces on the ground, Cosette revealed a smile of successful scheming. But the next second, she couldn't smile anymore. The sacred beast that she was supposed to guard had appeared in front of the broken sacred objects. Kira immediately jumped out, saying, "Look how you've been guarding the sacred beast. You've ruined the sacred objects. Are you blaming me?" Kira said, "But before we came, the prayer room door was clearly locked. This means someone deliberately let the sacred beast in." Cosette's words raised questions among the priests. Who was the last to leave the room? Kira answered it was her maid, who was sent for medical treatment due to concerns about smoke inhalation. Next, it was Roger's turn to play his part. He pretended to be flustered and explained, "How did the sacred objects break? They were fine when I left." At this moment, a nun stepped forward to testify for him, saying she evacuated with Roger, and indeed, they didn't have time to close the door. In other words, it was reasonable that the sacred beast came here and destroyed the objects while no one was around. Roger took the opportunity to take the blame on himself. It was all his fault for being careless, which led to this result. Kira crouched beside him. Even if Roger made a mistake, shouldn't the one truly responsible be the guardian of the sacred beast? The master and servant's coordinated act pointed the finger directly at Cosette. Just then, someone noticed the suspicious Mina. They asked where she was when the fire broke out. She stammered and couldn't answer for a long time. It must be Mina's laziness in not watching the sacred beast properly that caused this situation. Everyone chimed in, making Mina's face turn pale. But she indeed couldn't explain herself. Now that the truth is out, someone must be punished. How about giving Mina a caning punishment and expelling her from the capital? Kira's statement shocked everyone present. They didn't expect the maid to be so impartial. Mina looked to her master for help, but was directly ignored by Cosette. Poor Mina. Do you know how important it is to follow the right master? The plan to frame her sister had failed. Upon learning the truth, the Duke was very disappointed in this extremely foolish fake daughter. The Parvis family had never caused trouble to maintain absolute neutrality. However, because of this daughter who appeared out of nowhere, he actually had to write an apology letter. He was utterly embarrassed. Cosette stood there, gritting her teeth. It was all Kira's fault. That day at the temple, they had dealt with Mina, and the matter should have been over. But Kira actually proposed to strip her of her temple rights and issue an apology letter in the name of the Duke's mansion. Of course, he couldn't possibly do that. But those who make mistakes have no right to negotiate. He could only let Kira have her way. Even now, he wouldn't forget how smug Kira was at that time. Thanks to you, Cosette, I was able to complete this kill two birds with one stone plan. Although he didn't want to admit it, this time he had indeed lost to Kira, and his reputation at the temple was ruined as well. The nuns he had painstakingly won over now knew his hypocritical face. But none of that mattered. As long as he won over the Duke, he would still have a chance to deal with Kira. However, the man sent him to confinement. Without my permission, you can't leave the room even half a step. This couldn't go on. How could he go out and harm people? Father, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I promise. As he spoke, he rolled his crimson eyes. Bewitching people was his specialty. Unexpectedly, thunder and lightning suddenly flashed outside the window. It turned out that the goddess Beatrice had sent down a thunderstorm, interrupting his spell. Damn it, he was about to succeed. Can't you understand human language? Get out now. Cosette, who had been shut out, could only bite her lips in anger. Meanwhile, Kira was comfortably having afternoon tea with her brother Jack. To annoy Cosette, she deliberately brought the sacred beast, the little fox, back to the Duke's mansion. Every time she sees this little fox, she probably gets so angry she can't sleep. At this moment, Emily came to report that Cosette had been confined by the Duke. This was great. She could be free for a while. Hugging the little fox, Kira prepared to go out and relax. After a few steps, she encountered Joseph and Yassi again. As soon as he saw Kira, Joseph's face turned as red as a little tomato. The interaction between the two on that drinking night flashed in his mind. Yassi, sensing the gossip, immediately had an idea. How can the Duke's daughter go out without an escort? Then he pushed Joseph forward. The intention couldn't have been more obvious. Looking at the matching silhouettes of the two, Yassi cheered them on in his heart. Since the green tea sister was confined, the vice commander had started slacking off. His physical condition was also getting worse. Thinking about how he ended up in this state, all thanks to Kira, Cosette was so angry she gritted her teeth. She fantasized in her heart about what harmful tricks to use next. Unexpectedly, Kira had already come to her. I heard you're not feeling well. I came to check on you specifically. Cosette, of course, knew that Kira had come to laugh at her. But as long as she was still the Duke's daughter, Kira couldn't do anything to her. However, the next second, she heard words of reconciliation. I've been investigating your mother lately. Maybe you really are the Duke's biological daughter. I think there's no need for us to continue this infighting. Cosette could hardly believe her ears until Kira mentioned that last time at her aunt's house. She saw a way for sisters to awaken their fairy powers simultaneously. And my aunt even gave me the fairy stone. If we awaken together, wouldn't it prove that actually, even the so-called divine oracle can make mistakes? As she spoke, Kira took out the fairy stone, letting her choose whether to continue being enemies or to survive together. At this moment, Cosette's eyes were fixed only on that fairy stone. She pushed Kira aside, excited like a puppy seeing a treat. She finally got the fairy stone. If she destroyed it, all of this would be over. But as soon as she applied force, the stone shattered. How is this possible? How could a fairy stone break so easily like glass? At this moment, Kira laughed. Ha ha! She didn't expect Cosette to be so naive. How could she possibly bring out the real fairy stone? Mocked, Cosette became furious with embarrassment, preparing to go up and have a big fight. But Kira remained calm, dusting herself off. Then slowly approaching Cosette. I finally understand now why you've been picking on me all this time. So it was to see this kind of expression. I must say it's quite interesting. Cosette, you rejected the win-win solution and chose mutual destruction instead. But I still have to thank you. You've revealed your true purpose for coming to the Duke's family. Cosette now regretted it immensely. She didn't expect to make such a basic mistake. Since confronting Kira, she had lost to this woman every time. This feeling made her very uncomfortable. Getting angrier, she even planned to use black magic. However, just as she rushed forward, her arm was grabbed by Kira. I won't give you a second chance to hit me. Before Cosette could react, she was pushed to the ground. Hella disgustedly dusted off her hands, looking at the disheveled woman on the ground. I don't have time to keep playing with you. The princess is hosting a picnic. I'll go and have a good look on your behalf. And by the way, I'll update everyone on your recent situation. How you failed to ambush your sister and exposed your true intentions. Initially thought that Cosette's series of actions after entering the mansion were just to win people's hearts. Unexpectedly, her real target was the fairy stone. As the barrier connecting fairies and humans, once the fairy stone is destroyed, monsters would return to the human world. Grandfather had told her before, when Cosette's mother Rowena left the Duke's mansion. She was already pregnant, but she had a difficult labor while being pursued. So it's very likely she used black magic to give birth to this child. No wonder Cosette looks so similar to father. Although reluctant to admit, Cosette is her half-sister, but at least Kira understood why she targeted herself. The next day, Kira attended the princess's picnic as promised. She enjoyed various delicious foods with relish. At this time, someone asked why Cosette didn't come. Kira took the opportunity to spread the news that she was still under house arrest. How big a mistake must she have made to be confined? But who cares anyway? Later, everyone started talking about marriage prospects. The orange cat hesitated, mentioning seeing Kira and Joseph together last time. They mentioned seeing the two of them shopping together. The sight of you two together is simply delightful. Could he possibly be your lover? How could that be? He's just a knight from my household. At this point, East Cat interjected. Wasn't he blonde? Now that's truly handsome. Even though Kira explained that he was just a magician friend, she couldn't control the gossip girl's imagination. In the end, they even started discussing whether the Duke's daughter should be with the magician, or marry the knight, or perhaps both. Kira almost spat out her coffee. What outrageous talk! But seeing her blush, those people became even more excited. They insisted she make a choice. Fortunately, the princess noticed her embarrassment and promptly led her away. Just when Kira thought the matter was over, Red Hair cornered her and said, "Tell me, who do you really like?" Even the princess was so gossipy. Seeing Kira stammer without a clear answer, Red Hair turned away dejectedly. "You can't even tell me? I thought our relationship had become closer than before." She then looked at Kira with a blush. Or, am I being presumptuous? It was the first time someone had spoken to her like this. Kira was equally shy, but she gritted her teeth and told the truth. "Actually, I don't want to get married. I attend gatherings to make friends." This was something Red Hair had never considered. The proud Duke's daughter, whom even she had to approach first to talk to before. Perhaps due to the stark contrast, Red Hair found her even more adorable. "Now you have me. I am your friend. I'll always be by your side." Kira, worth 1,000 gold, experienced her first stirrings of love. Her brother was terrified. Sister has been acting strange lately. Not only has she lost interest in food and tea, but she also likes to stare out the window, or she'll suddenly startle and then slap her blushing face. Could Sister have fallen seriously ill? He went to ask those who served her, but everyone was clueless. How could Jack know that Kira was experiencing her first love? Ever since attending the princess's gathering, that question kept replaying in her mind. Who will you choose to marry? Her cheeks would start to warm up. Two faces would automatically appear before her eyes. One was the gentle and handsome knight, Joseph, who had been by her side since her previous life. The other, though always touchy-feely with her, was Erez, her lifesaver. Had she really never felt anything for them? But her wildly beating heart had already betrayed her thoughts. However, these unusual behaviors, in her brother Jack's eyes, made him think his sister had mental issues. He asked Yassi to secretly observe Kira's every move. But no matter how he looked, he thought the commander was fine. Until Joseph appeared in the picture. One started stuttering when speaking, the other blushed to the ears. Yassi immediately smelled the scent of love. These two must have something going on. He followed behind, grinning foolishly. Joseph didn't understand why he was smiling like an idiot again. Yassi secretly approached the vice commander. "Have you and the young lady made any progress recently?" Hearing this, someone's face color alone revealed his guilt. But he stubbornly denied it. He kicked Yassi's leg, saying, "Stop talking nonsense." While speaking, he glanced at Kira with a guilty expression. Unexpectedly, Kira had already heard and was now flustered. She didn't notice she had missed a step on the stairs. Just as she thought she was about to have an intimate encounter with the floor, a pair of warm, large hands suddenly caught her waist. Their eyes met, and the air was filled with pink bubbles. Can you say this is the look of innocent people? The next second, they quickly separated as if electrocuted. Excuse me. It's all right. The onlookers' eyes lit up. I knew it. These two really have something going on. Even Roger noticed something was off. After returning from the night order in the afternoon, the young lady sat alone, lost in thought again. Her cheeks were slightly flushed. Could she be running a fever? He pondered whether to bring some medicine when he bumped into someone coming towards him. Hera ran out upon hearing the commotion. Erez seemed to have found a savior. "Miss Hera, save me." Hera was confused until she saw the Duke coming with people. Catch that intruder. He never used the front door when chasing people. He always climbed over the wall to get in. He was caught red-handed by the girl's father. He still claimed he had an appointment. "You didn't use the front door. Who would believe you?" The Duke just wanted to drive him out, but his daughter spoke up. "He's my guest. What right do you have to drive him away?" The air was silent for 2 seconds. The disappointing father turned away dejectedly. "But you, young man, I'll remember you." Erez shivered on the spot. He only felt at ease after entering Kira's room. But Kira started questioning him. "Why did you suddenly come to see me without notice?" "What else could it be?" "It's because I was worried. Since their last parting, he couldn't contact her. Afraid she was being bullied by the green tea bitch. He came to check on her." "Tell me, are you avoiding me? Suddenly getting so close? Just to say this?" Hera quickly backed away. "I was just too busy. I wasn't avoiding you." Seeing her blushing cheeks, Erez smiled mischievously. If that's the case, then I can come see you anytime, right? After saying that, he sat down next to her. It's not like you have to always come see me. Why do I need a reason? I just want to see you. Is that not allowed? After saying such suggestive words, he still had the appetite to eat. This person really has thick skin. This scene happened to be witnessed by Roger outside the door. I ship it, I ship it. The young lady's unusual behavior these days was because she's in love. He even excitedly ran to share with Yasi. Oh my, it seems spring has come for the young lady. However, what they didn't know was they were shipping completely different couples. They even presumptively reported to Jack. The young lady might be getting married soon. Roger was even more excited, saying he would make the young lady the most beautiful bride in the Empire. Thinking about his sister leaving him, Jack couldn't accept this reality and fainted. At the later hunting event, Hera didn't see her brother. While feeling depressed, she saw Cosette at the entrance. That person's face was still as thick as ever. Seeing Kira, she not only greeted her actively, but also complained that she hadn't come to see her recently, as if their relationship was so good. Unexpectedly, Kira decided to slap her in the face. Sorry, I'm afraid of getting too close to drunks and causing controversy. Besides, we're not that familiar, are we? For a moment, Cosette was grinding her teeth in anger, unable to find words to retort. But seeing the Duke appear, she started her performance again. She enthusiastically invited the lousy father to join her. However, it was all for nothing. The butler directly closed the door. Who would ride in a carriage to a hunting event? Unfortunately, Cosette couldn't ride a horse, so she was left alone. She watched helplessly as the Duke and Kira left. After all, who wants to listen to her chatter all the way? In front of her sister, the green tea sister acted hard. As long as it was a man by her sister's side, she wouldn't let any of them go. She even arrogantly thought the blondie would definitely be fascinated by her. But she didn't know it was this man who made her a complete joke at the hunting event. Because each family only had 2 tents, Cosette got her wish to stay with Kira. This way, it's more convenient for her to cause trouble. Coincidentally, she met Erez coming over. Cosette excitedly approached him. Hey, wow, you're so handsome. I'm Cosette Parvis. Have you heard of me? Then she tightly held the man's hand. Seeing her unwillingness to let go, Kira coldly said, had enough. Only then did she reluctantly let go. It seems he quite likes me. Look, he even left marks on my hand, but I don't like his type. Don't be jealous. Hera was speechless. Bro, I think you're overthinking it. The two's bickering angered the Duke so much he walked out with devilish steps. Why are you here? Isn't magic forbidden at the event? I actually came to get closer to everyone. Besides, I'm of marriageable age now. What? The Duke's loud voice instantly attracted everyone's attention. Hera felt so embarrassed. She chose to distance herself from those 2 eye-catchers. The next day, the hunting event officially began. Cosette changed in her gear early in the morning. She planned to team up with Kira. Hera's grandfather came forward to stop her, but was blocked by his granddaughter. He just wanted to confirm something. He had been looking for an opportunity. Now he came to her doorstep. Kira couldn't ask for more. A mother deer was walking with her fawn in the forest. But the next second, she fell under Kira's arrow. Joseph, seeing this, prepared to carry the prey, but was stopped by Kira. There's still one more. She looked at Cosette. Since you're here, do you want to try? Anyone could see that Kira wanted to compete with Cosette. She had always wanted to defeat Kira. How could she pass up this opportunity? She aligned her body with the sword, her posture as perfect as could be. Kira happily watched this scene. The fish was finally about to take the bait. However, at the critical moment, a voice called out, "Oh, you can actually shoot arrows." This idiot. He should have said that after she hit the prey. Then he and Yasi would exclaim simultaneously, "She has an amazing talent for archery." Everyone would start to doubt her previous claim of being a country commoner. Although the plan had deviated now, there was still a chance to salvage it. Yeah, when did you learn archery? With these words, the surrounding crowd started to discuss. Under pressure, Cosette explained with a fake smile that before coming to the Duke's mansion, "My uncle taught me a bit, but I only learned for a few days, so I'm not very skilled." She knew she would say that, but Kira had already thought of how to respond. If that's the case, you should try even more. Let's see how well you've learned. If she hit the target, it would negate what she just said. If she missed, it would be admitting she's not as skilled as Kira. Either outcome would upset Cosette. In front of everyone, the green tea sister cried with snot and tears, "Little Lulu is so cute. How can we kill her?" a precise performance of tea art, instantly making all the men present feel sorry for her. Seeing Kira's stunned expression, she cried even harder. Are you going to kill the mother and child again? She was implying the incident where her mother was forced to death by Kira's grandfather. The Marquis behind her was clearly panicking. Cosette's move was so vicious. If Kira couldn't answer, everyone would really believe that she and her grandfather's family were targeting her. He tried hard to refute, but his mind went blank. Suddenly, Erez appeared behind him. Since you can't bring yourself to do it, why don't I help you? With a whoosh, the fawn fell. I never thought you'd be so soft-hearted, miss. If you really felt sorry for the prey, you shouldn't have come to the hunting event. Don't you know that what you just said is an insult to everyone here? Everyone instantly realized Cosette's words were implying that they were all cold-blooded and heartless people. Those who were standing next to her left in disgust. Erez also gave the hunted fawn to Kira. Suddenly, everyone was congratulating Kira. Cosette stood aside like a joke, ignored by all. In the end, she could only return with the night squad. After everyone had left, Kira and Erez sat alone on the small lawn. Thank you for saving me again, just now. The man heard this and looked smug. It would be even better if you showed some practical gratitude, he said while reaching out his lecherous hand. But he stopped when he saw the earring on Kira's ear. What's this? Kira blushed, not understanding. When she realized he was talking about the crack in the earring, she hurriedly explained. She had no recollection of it at all. Erez realized that Cosette must have used black magic. Although it was just a small crack now, she definitely wouldn't let it go at that. It's broken. Why are you still wearing it? Aren't you afraid of getting hurt? Of course, because it's from you. The word she didn't say out loud, Erez understood perfectly. His mood suddenly improved greatly. Give it to me, I'll fix it. This time he reinforced it with 100 layers of magic. Even if a magical beast stepped on it, it wouldn't break. Afterwards, he wanted to help her put it on, but Kira snatched it away. That shy little look amused him again. Since it's done, I'll be going now. With that, he summoned a magic circle. He looked at Kira reluctantly. Then he disappeared from the spot. For the next 3 days, Kira had a great time. In the end, the princess and prince received the most prey, becoming the stars of the event. Ever since the fawn incident, the nobles had isolated Cosette. Ignored by everyone, he stayed in his tent and never came out. In the past, he would have spread unfavorable rumors about Kira everywhere. But due to the princess and Kira's close relationship, he didn't dare to act rashly. Just when everyone thought the hunting event had ended successfully, a monster appeared at the banquet. The servant master finally revealed his true face. Watching Kira come to find weapons, he couldn't control his excitement. You're asking for death yourself. However, Kira's mind was on the monster before her. If not dealt with promptly, everyone present might be wiped out. Suddenly, the two fought fiercely over the weapons. Cosette no longer pretended to be a loving sister. An evil smile appeared on his face. Di Cairo. He pushed her out. The monster behind shouted excitedly, ready to enjoy this delicious meal. She would surely die. But then he saw the Duke's face, anxious beyond measure. When he came to his senses, she had already landed safely. The Duke had lost consciousness. The monster opened its bloody mouth, ready to attack again. At this moment, Joseph appeared with the night squad. With one sword, he ended its life. This farce finally ended. The banquet scene was in complete disarray. The princess was relieved, fortunate that Kira wasn't hurt. However, the red-haired prince fell into deep thought. The Duke, rumored to be indifferent to his daughter, actually rushed to save her personally. Is blood really thicker than water? In another room, the Duke remained unconscious for a long time. Kira's feelings were particularly complex. The father who sent her to the guillotine in her previous life had just risked his life to save her. That concerned and caring expression she had never seen before. She thought he would save Cosette first. Unexpectedly, he chose her. She really didn't know what this person was thinking. With a bang, the door was opened. Erez rushed in, panting. He grabbed Kira's hand. 3 circles left, 3 circles right. After confirming she wasn't hurt, he finally let out a long sigh. Thank goodness you're all right. Since he was already here, he might as well check on his future father-in-law. Although his breathing was stable, he just wouldn't. Wake up, Erez suggested. We could go to the temple to find some healing magic. I can help. Don't worry for now. Kira turned her face away, awkwardly. Who's worried? She just found it strange why the Duke suddenly changed his attitude. Erez thought she was overthinking it. Maybe the Duke has always cared about you, and your small changes after rebirth would cause a butterfly effect. Perhaps in this life, the Duke actually loves you. Kira lowered her head dejectedly. That's impossible. She absolutely wouldn't believe it. She had always warned herself. No expectations, no disappointments. So she would never be as foolish as she was as a child. It seems this father and daughter are equally stubborn. He didn't want to continue this topic. But there's one thing I think you should know. The one who begged me to turn back time was the Duke. The terrible father finally found the truth in his dreams. It turned out he had killed his own daughter in the previous life. Even his only son was sacrificed due to his foolishness. And the other daughter he once took pride in had actually joined forces with demons to destroy the world. Less than a month after Hera's death, the land was devastated. People died en masse like withered leaves. Humans and demons officially began a great war. At this very moment, his Aunt Johanna had her throat slit. Cosette also disappeared, as if she had vanished into thin air. Not a trace could be found in the entire empire. It was as if someone was plotting something. Everything was too coincidental. The Duke stood on the ground that resembled hell. Where exactly did things start to go wrong? Was it his sister's death? Or Cosette's disappearance? Or was it even further back? He suddenly thought of the deceased Kira. But it had already been proven that she wasn't of Parvis' bloodline. As he was lost in thought, Cosette, who had long disappeared, emerged from the ruins. The Duke excitedly threw down his sword. "Where have you been all these days? Are you hurt?" But as soon as he touched the girl's body, he couldn't help but shudder. Ice cold, no warmth, just like a corpse. "Who are you? What have you done to my daughter?" The girl opposite seemed to hear a joke. "Your daughter? Didn't you already kill her?" Then, under the man's shocked gaze, she began to tell a story from 20 years ago. A woman named Rowena, about to give birth, was being hunted. She carefully hid in a corner. If she could just give birth to the child in her womb, she could seek revenge on these people later. But blood flowed down her legs. With trembling hands, she couldn't believe her child had died in the womb. Filled with hatred, she summoned a demon from hell. "I'm willing to sell my soul. Please help me take revenge. Let everyone suffer a fate worse than death." The contract was made. Rowena left the world with resentment and hatred. And her child, that is the current me, the Duke stepped back, saying it was impossible. "If you're of demon race, how can you use elf magic?" "Oh, that? Thanks to this body. No matter the soul, as long as the vessel is from the Parvis family, it can control elves." When the bloody truth was laid before his eyes, the Duke fell to his knees in despair. Regret wasn't enough to describe his current desperation. He even had thoughts of dying. Would death be able to undo everything from before? Could he gain his daughter's forgiveness? The Duke tortured himself with these thoughts. The immense sorrow even made his body retch uncontrollably. He crawled on the ground like a dog, hoping Cosette would give him a quick death. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. She hooked his chin. "I won't let you die easily. I want you to watch, lonely and desperate, as this world slowly perishes. Witness with your own eyes the disaster brought upon the world by your mistakes. Then you can choose to end yourself." Learning the truth, the father decided to give up completely. He lay on the bed, feeling worse than death. Blood spewed from the corner of his mouth, yet he eagerly awaited death's arrival. On his deathbed, his soul floated to a prison. His deceased son, Jack, was looking at him expressionlessly. "Didn't I tell you long ago never to abandon sister?" That father deeply pierced his heart. He guiltily apologized to his son, thinking he could still make up for something. But Jack suddenly shouted, "He and sister are both dead. Are you coming to say these disgusting things now?" All along, he and his sister only wanted their father's gentle smile. Even a brief greeting would have made them happy for a long time. However, such a humble wish was mercilessly destroyed. He came here only to ask his father one thing. "You must not die." He and sister don't want to see him on the road to the underworld. The Duke desperately tried to hold on, begging his son not to leave. "Please give me one more chance." At this moment, he seemed like an old man in his twilight years, kneeling on the ground, repenting for his mistakes. "Do you want me to give you another chance?" Suddenly, a voice woke him up. "What?" He struggled to prop himself up. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. He thought it was a false alarm, but a mysterious figure suddenly appeared in the room. The man raised his 0.1 meter long sword, intending to strike. However, the other party wasn't here to fight him. "Do you regret your actions? I can help you change the past." He felt like he was hearing a fairy tale. How could such a thing be possible? But the other party was dead serious, not seeming to be joking at all. The Duke began to waver. If this was true, could he return to the past? Would he have a chance to make up for his mistakes? The mysterious person told him. To sign the contract, he must pay a price. that is to offer up his own soul. He hardly hesitated. Even if it meant eternal damnation, so be it, as long as it could give his children another chance at life. Even if Kira would resent him and hate him, even if she wouldn't forgive him, so be it. His life was worthless. Time reversed. The gears of fate turned once again. With a tremor, the Duke woke up from his dream. Tears of regret had already blurred his cheeks. The father tried his best to make up for his daughter's past life grievances. Unfortunately, the wrong palace maid would never trust him again. The man who had been unconscious for 3 days finally opened his eyes. The first thing he did after waking up was to frantically search for his daughter. He feared that if he was late, the helplessness and despair in his dream would become reality. He held Kira tightly in his arms, so carefully, as if protecting a fragile treasure. The sudden action almost frightened the girl. "I'm sorry, Kira. You must have had a hard time these years." After they sat down, the terrible father confessed that he had been having nightmares for a long time. In the dream, the empire was in ruins, day and night indistinguishable. Most importantly, you weren't in that world. Hera immediately realized Erez had said that the Duke was the one who reversed time with him, and the horrific scenes he described must be the world after his death. He wanted to ask for more useful information, but the man started apologizing on his own. As the shield of the empire, he had always warned himself not to be swayed by personal emotions, so he neglected his young children. When the children needed him most, he chose to be a cold bystander. "I was really a terrible father. I only thought about the family and the empire. But now I want to live for you as your father. Can you give me another chance? A chance to atone to you." Hera stood there, speechless for a long time. The apology that came more than a decade late made her feel more surprised than anything. The Duke thought it was just a nightmare he had, but he had really died. After his mother passed away, his father was all he had left in his heart. But no matter how hard he tried, his father never spared him a glance. Later, with Cosette's arrival, he even doubted if he was truly of Pavis blood. Countless sleepless nights he didn't know how he endured. So he remained himself. He could choose to coexist peacefully with the Duke, but he would never love again. However, to deal with Cosette and the Bane family, he still needed the Duke's power. As for your words about living for me, I'm quite happy about that. I plan to send Cosette back to the Earl's mansion. Kira looked at the man in disbelief. Seeing him push his own daughter towards the magical beast, the Duke had already decided Cosette couldn't stay. But before confirming who between him and Kira was the true spirit master, he couldn't deal with him either. Kira knew that for a man who always weighed pros and cons, to go this far meant he had already changed. However, she had a question in mind. "Are you really sure I'm your daughter? Judging by appearance, Cosette seems more likely." But this time, the man gave her a definitive answer. "I'm certain you are my daughter." Kira, being acknowledged, almost fled in panic. She didn't know why she was crying. Perhaps remembering her past self? "See, he finally acknowledged you. Too bad you can't hear it anymore." The mischievous green tea finally got her punishment. Seeing the maid coming to help pack her luggage, she was still making a last struggle. Thinking it was Kira's idea, she clamored about finding the Duke for justice. Unexpectedly, she was slapped in the face the next second. The Duke not only came, but also publicly scolded her. "Since you came to the Duke's mansion, you've only caused trouble. Sending you away is already saving your face." This scene was quite urgent in Emily's eyes, who told her to always bully the young lady. She deserved it, but Cosette still shamelessly said it was all a misunderstanding. "Misunderstanding? I saw with my own eyes what you did to Kira at the hunting event." Seeing that begging wouldn't work, he planned to use black magic again to bewitch the man. Unexpectedly, as soon as he moved, a statue of the goddess appeared behind the Duke. Was Beatrice warning him? He froze in place, not daring to act rashly. Finally accepting the reality of being driven away. Watching Cosette's carriage leave the mansion, Kira was still surprised. She didn't expect the Duke to actually follow through. Through this magical beast attack incident, he also discovered some strange things. In her previous life, after being sentenced to death, it was almost immediately executed. However, according to normal procedures, regardless of the cause of death, it would take a long time to process before execution, especially since he was a noble, particularly for the Duke who valued social procedures. It was impossible to bypass everyone to push this matter. He suspected if he had been manipulated, so he asked Erez to help investigate. But does such magic really exist? The more he thought, the more his head hurt. Better to rest for a while. Unexpectedly, just as he lay down, the bedroom door was pushed open. It was Jack and a group of subordinates. Sister, did you see? That unlucky woman is finally gone. Yasi even cried with excitement. Although the young lady never showed it, they all knew in their hearts during the time Cosette was here. The young lady had a hard time seeing everyone's sincere blessings. Kira's mood also improved for once. The next day, the siblings had a small celebration in the wilderness. It had been a long time since he was alone with his sister. Jack finally asked the question he had been holding back for a long time. Sister, are you in love recently? Kira blushed on the spot, frightened. Coincidentally, Joseph walked by. Kira wanted to change the subject, so she started chatting with Joseph. Unexpectedly, seeing the harmonious picture of the two, her brother blurted out, Sister, you're not in love with Joseph, are you? The atmosphere suddenly became extremely awkward. Kira kept explaining, don't listen to what kids say. But Jack had his own thoughts. If it's with Joseph, I have no objection. He grabbed the man's arm. Then he solemnly instructed, I entrust my sister to you. I hope you won't betray my trust. Faced with her brother's sudden action, Kira just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Luckily, the little fox ran out at this moment, successfully attracting Jack's attention. Left alone with Joseph, she apologized again, saying not to listen to a child's nonsense. How could a knight have such personal intentions? What if I do? Is that not allowed? He smiled bitterly. Realizing her slip of the tongue, she turned and fled in panic. She really wanted to slap herself twice. The green tea girl, sent back to the Marquis's mansion, panicked. Even Amir made now gossiped about her. Just as she was thinking how to retaliate, the Marquis fired that person. My niece has finally come to stay for a few days, yet someone here is talking nonsense. But after dismissing the servant, the man's expression changed. Let's have a chat. Do you remember 10 years ago when you, claiming to be Rowena's daughter, first stood before me? I didn't believe it at first. But the dead girl spoke in detail about my sister and had an appearance identical to Naha Duke. As an uncle, I indeed had an obligation to help my sister care for a pair of children. But the girl advised me not to misunderstand. My sister's child had died in the womb long ago, and she was a demon who had made a contract with me. I fell back in shock, but the girl became excited. Don't you want to avenge your sister? I thought she meant Kira's grandfather, the Marquis of Edinburgh. After all, the tragedy back then was all planned by that old man. No, my target is the entire Marquis family, including that Duke's daughter with Edinburgh blood. But if the elf master dies, humans will also perish. The girl solemnly promised not to harm the innocent, so I agreed to cooperate with her, for my sister, and for that unborn child. But how could one trust a demon's words? Now he was increasingly confused. Cosette, as a noble lady, now not only had a bad reputation, but was also driven out of the Duke's mansion. Have you really put my sisters and my revenge as the top priority? Unexpectedly, his questioning was ruthlessly interrupted. The tomato-colored eyes were full of displeasure. Are you doubting me now? Didn't we agree to have the same goal? Don't overthink it. Everything is under my control. She's been driven out, yet still stubborn. But the Marquis also knew now was not the time to fall out. To avenge his sister, he must endure. When only Cosette was left in the room, she no longer had the confidence from earlier. As long as Beatrice's energy remained, her black magic couldn't take effect at all. Originally planning to stay at the Duke's mansion to find the elf was ruined. But now it seemed she had to attack head-on. He just accidentally dropped his fork, yet he was so scared he broke out in a cold sweat. His father would surely scold him for lacking manners. Unexpectedly, the usually cold man's first reaction was to ask if he was hurt. Even his sister was acting strange, actually chatting with father during the meal. Although they were talking about work, in his memory this had never happened before. Jack was dumbfounded on the spot. At this moment, the butler rushed in to report. There was a gunpowder explosion at Ant's mansion. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the warehouse was severely damaged. The Duke needed to send people for repairs. Kira immediately realized this must be Cosette causing trouble again. Sitting in the carriage heading to Ant's house, Kira had an idea. If she wanted to rest, Cosette had to completely disappear. But she didn't expect the little green tea to be so thick-skinned, still able to act as if nothing happened and visit Ant. But she just had to expose her faults. How come you don't attend social activities after returning to the Marquis's mansion? Cosette shrugged helplessly. I haven't been feeling well lately. I don't like attending those boring events. That's just an excuse. Who would risk offending the Duke's mansion now? To invite her? And if she's not feeling well, why not rest at home? Why come to Ant's place? She must be up to no good. She took 2 quick steps towards her. By the way, after you left, father has become much gentler, thanks to your influence. Hearing this, Cosette's expression instantly changed. She looked at Kira vigilantly. Even her voice trembled noticeably. Father has become gentler. You must be very happy. Isn't that what you've always wished for? Tired of listening to her nonsense, Kira and Joseph left. He had only probed a little, and Cosette panicked. She was indeed hiding an unknown secret. Fortunately, he came and seemed to think the gunpowder explosion was just an accident. She didn't intend to investigate further, but he still suggested investigating before concluding. It turned out Ant ordered gunpowder from the same merchant group every year, so Cosette probably bribed the vendor. But did she go to such lengths just to destroy the warehouse? At this point, the butler revealed a key piece of information. When Miss Cosette came to visit the madam today, she seemed quite normal. She even suggested the madam move to the side house for safety reasons. This way, the mansion could be repaired before winter. Though it seemed caring, Kira still found it suspicious, deliberately destroying the old house, then urging Ant to repair it quickly. Could she be trying to plant spies among the workers? But for what purpose? He suddenly thought of something. Cosette was looking for the elf stone. The girl he liked was going to find someone else. He spoke up for the first time. Can't you not go? He even humbly tugged at her clothes. Am I not enough? Please don't go to someone else. Kira stood there stunned. Not long ago, they gathered all the workers involved in repairing the house. Together, they nearly killed the Empire's spirit mage. Yet these people still had the nerve to beg for mercy. In this situation, you dare to ask me to spare your lives? In principle, you should all be sentenced to death. But I can be merciful and spare one life. The workers seemed to see hope, excitedly asking if it was true. Hera smiled faintly. Of course, but only for the first person to confess. Afterwards, those people were separated and locked up. Joseph worried. Can we really find the mastermind with just a few threats? Hera was confident. He promised Ant he wouldn't use torture, and he wouldn't wrongly accuse any innocent person. Now they were locked up separately, unable to communicate with each other. All he had to do was wait. Someone would surely come forward. As expected, 2 days later, someone couldn't handle the pressure. They confessed that there were 3 participants. Their backgrounds were clean, but they all had one thing in common. They weren't very wealthy. They did this for money. Moreover, the client only asked them to verify if the mansion's floor plan matched the actual structure. But strangely, this client was very mysterious. Even the 3 of them had never seen them. Who was behind this was obvious. Even Joseph guessed it was Cosette's doing, but they had no evidence. Looking at the confession in hand, Hera fell into deep thought. To find the elf stone, Cosette had started to use any means necessary. Baron Bane knew his true purpose. Even if humans and demons went to war again, he didn't care anymore. No good. He must tell Erez about this now. Unexpectedly, just as he stood up, Joseph stopped him. Are you going to find the young mage? Is it because I couldn't help you? So you want to find someone else? Can you not go? Hera stood there stunned. The usually confident man was now begging him so humbly. He stepped forward and covered her hand. He had helped him a lot these 2 days. He was grateful. But regarding the human-demon war, he really didn't want Joseph to be involved anymore. He knew clearly in his heart, if at this moment he told the man about his past life experiences, this person would undoubtedly believe him firmly, even willing to sacrifice to protect him. But he didn't want such sacrifice. Once in the past life was enough. He didn't want him to be involved in his struggle with Cosette again. So sorry. The Duke finally found the truth of that year in his dream. It turned out in his past life, he killed his own daughter with his own hands. Even his only son was sacrificed because of his foolishness. And the other daughter, he once took pride in actually joined hands with demons and destroyed the entire world. Less than a month after Hera's death, the land was devastated, and people died en masse like withered leaves. Humans and demons officially began a great war. At this very moment, his Aunt Johanna had her throat slit. Cosette also disappeared, as if she had vanished into thin air. Not a trace could be found in the entire empire. It seemed like someone was plotting something. Everything was too coincidental. The Duke stood on the ground that resembled hell. Where exactly did things start to go wrong? His sister's death? Or Cosette's disappearance? Or perhaps even earlier? He suddenly thought of the deceased Kira, but it had already been proven that she wasn't of Pavis blood. As he pondered in confusion, Cosette, who had long disappeared, emerged from the ruins. The Duke excitedly threw down his sword. Where have you been all these days? Are you hurt? But as soon as he touched the girl's body, he couldn't help but shudder. Ice cold, no warmth, just like a dead person. Who are you really? What have you done to my daughter? The girl opposite seemed to hear a joke. Your daughter? Didn't you already kill her? Then, under the man's shocked gaze, she began to tell a story from 20 years ago. A woman named Rowena was hunted down when she was about to give birth. She carefully hid in a corner. As long as she could give birth to the child in her womb, it wouldn't be too late to seek revenge on these people. But blood flowed down her legs. She trembled, unable to believe her child had died in the womb. Filled with hatred, she summoned a demon from hell. I'm willing to sell my soul. Please help me take revenge. Let everyone suffer a fate worse than death and despair. The contract was made. Rowena left the world with resentment and grudges. Her child, that is, the current me, the Duke stepped back, saying it was impossible. If you're of demon race, how can you use elven magic? Oh, that? Thanks to this body. No matter what the soul is, as long as the vessel is from the Pavis family, it can control the elven. When the bloody truth was laid bare before his eyes, the Duke collapsed to his knees in despair. Regret wasn't enough to describe his current state of desperation. He even had thoughts of wanting to die. Would dying be able to undo everything from the past? Would it earn his daughter's forgiveness? The Duke tortured himself with these thoughts. The immense sorrow even made his body retch uncontrollably. He crawled on the ground like a dog, hoping Cosette would give him a quick death. But to his disappointment, she lifted his chin, saying, I won't let you die so easily. I'll make you watch this world perish bit by bit, lonely and desperate. After witnessing with your own eyes the disaster brought upon the world due to your mistakes, then you can choose to end yourself. Learning the truth, the father decided to give up completely. He lay on the bed, feeling worse than death. Blood spewed from the corner of his mouth, yet he eagerly awaited death's arrival. On the brink of death, his soul drifted to a prison. His deceased son Jack was looking at him expressionlessly. Didn't I tell you before? Never abandon, sister? That word, father, deeply pierced his heart. He apologized to his son guiltily, thinking it might make up for something. But Jack suddenly shouted, he and sister are both dead. Now you come to say these disgusting things? All along, he and his sister only wanted their father's gentle smile. Even a brief greeting would have made them happy for a long time. Yet such a humble wish was mercilessly destroyed. He came here only to ask his father one thing. You must not die. He and his sister don't want to see him on the road to the underworld. The Duke desperately tried to hold on, begging his son not to leave. Please give me one more chance. At this moment, he seemed like an old man in his twilight years, kneeling on the ground, repenting for his mistakes. Should I give you another chance? Suddenly, a voice woke him up. Who's there? He struggled to prop himself up, but the surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. He thought it was a false alarm, but a mysterious figure suddenly appeared in the room. The man raised his 0.1-meter-long sword, ready to fight to the death. However, the other person wasn't there to fight him. Do you regret your actions? I can help you change the past. He thought he was hearing a fairy tale. How could such a thing be possible? But the other person was dead serious. It didn't seem like a joke at all. The Duke began to waver. If this was true, could he return to the past? He might have a chance to make up for his mistakes. The mysterious person told him that to make a contract, he must pay a price. That price was to offer his own soul. He hardly hesitated, even if it meant eternal damnation, as long as his children could live again. Even if Kira would resent and hate him, even if she wouldn't forgive him, his life was worthless. Time reversed. The gears of fate turned once again. With a shudder, the Duke woke from his dream. Tears of remorse had already blurred his cheeks. The debt from his past life made the father strive to compensate his daughter. But unfortunately, the wronged maid would never trust him again. The man who had been unconscious for 3 days. Upon waking, the first thing he did was to frantically search for his daughter. He feared that if he was late, the helplessness and despair from his dream would become reality. He held Kira tightly in his arms, so carefully, as if protecting a fragile treasure. The sudden action almost frightened the girl. I'm sorry, Kira. You must have had a hard time these years. After they sat down, the father confessed that he had been having nightmares for a long time. In the dream, the empire was in ruins, day and night indistinguishable. Most importantly, you weren't in that world. Kira immediately realized, remembering that Erez had said the Duke was the one who reversed time with him, and the horrific scenes he described must be the world after his death. She wanted to ask for more useful information, but the man started apologizing on his own. As the shield of the empire, He had always warned himself not to be swayed by personal feelings. So, he neglected his young children. When they needed him the most, he chose to be a cold bystander. I've been a terrible father. I only thought about the family and the empire. But now I want to live for you as your father. Can you give me another chance? A chance to redeem myself to you. Kira stood there speechless for a long time. An apology that came over a decade late made her feel more surprised than anything else. The Duke thought it was just a nightmare he had, but he had actually died. After her mother passed away, he only had his father left in his heart. But no matter how hard he tried, his father never spared him a glance. Later, because of Cosette's arrival, he even doubted if he was truly of Parvis blood. Countless sleepless nights, he didn't know how he endured them. So he remained himself. He could choose to coexist peacefully with the Duke, but he would never love again. However, to deal with Cosette and the Bain family, he still needed the power of the Duke's mansion. About your words of living for me, I'm quite happy to hear that. I plan to send Cosette back to the Count's mansion. Kira looked at the man in disbelief. When he saw his daughter being pushed towards the monster, the Duke had already decided that Cosette couldn't stay. But before confirming whether he or Kira was the true elf master, he couldn't deal with him either. Kira knew that for a man who always weighed pros and cons, to do this much meant he had already made a change. However, she had a question in her heart. Are you really sure I'm your daughter? Looking at appearances, Cosette seems more similar. But this time, the man gave her a definitive answer. I'm certain you are my daughter. Kira, being acknowledged, almost fled in a panic. She didn't know why she was crying. Perhaps she remembered her past self. See, she finally acknowledged you, but you can't hear it anymore. The evil green tea finally got her punishment. Seeing that you came to help her pack, she was still making a last struggle. She thought it was Kira's idea, shouting about going to the Duke for justice. Unexpectedly, she was immediately slapped in the face. Not only did the Duke come, but he also publicly rebuked her. Since you came to the Duke's mansion, you've only caused trouble. Sending you away is already saving your face. This scene was quite satisfying to Emily. She deserved it for always bullying the young lady. But Cosette still shamelessly said it was all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I saw with my own eyes what you did to Kira at the hunting event. Seeing that begging wouldn't work, she planned to use black magic to bewitch the man again. But as soon as she moved, a statue of the goddess appeared behind the Duke. Was Beatrice warning her? She froze in place, not daring to act rashly, finally accepting the reality of being sent away. Watching Cosette's carriage leave the mansion, Kira was still surprised. She didn't expect the Duke to actually follow through. Through this magical beast attack incident, he also discovered some strange things. In her previous life, after being sentenced to death, it was almost immediately executed. However, according to normal procedures, regardless of the cause of death, it would take a long time to process before execution, especially since she was a noble, particularly for the Duke who valued social procedures. It was impossible to bypass everyone to push this matter. She suspected if he had been manipulated, so she asked Ares to help investigate. But does such magic really exist? The more she thought, the more her head hurt. She decided to rest for a while. Unexpectedly, just as she lay down, the bedroom door was pushed open. It was Jack and a group of subordinates. Sister, did you see? That unlucky woman is finally gone. Yasi was even crying with excitement. Although the young lady never showed it, they all knew in their hearts that during Cosette's stay, the young lady had a very hard time. Seeing everyone's sincere blessings, Kira's mood also improved for once. The next day, the siblings had a small celebration in the wilderness. It had been a long time since he was alone with his sister. Jack finally asked the question he had been holding back for a long time. Sister, are you in love recently? Kira blushed on the spot, startled. Coincidentally, Joseph walked by. Kira wanted to use this chance to change the subject, so she started chatting with Joseph. Unexpectedly, seeing the harmonious scene between the two, her brother blurted out, Sister, you're not dating Joseph, are you? The atmosphere suddenly became extremely awkward. Hera kept explaining not to listen to what kids say, but Jack had his own thoughts. If it's with Joseph, he had no objections. He grabbed the man's arm, then solemnly instructed him, I'm entrusting my sister to you. I hope you won't betray my trust. Faced with her brother's sudden actions, Kira just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Luckily, the little fox ran out at this moment, successfully attracting Jack's attention. Left alone with Joseph, she apologized again, saying not to listen to the kid's nonsense. How could a knight have such personal intentions? What if I do? Is that not allowed? He smiled bitterly. Realizing her slip of the tongue, she turned and fled in a hurry. She really wanted to slap herself twice. Sent back to the Marquis's mansion, the green tea finally panicked. Even a small maid was now criticizing her. Just as she was thinking how to retaliate, the Marquis fired that person. My niece has finally come back to stay for a few days, yet someone here is talking nonsense. But after dismissing the servant, the man's expression changed. Let's talk. Do you remember 10 years ago when you, claiming to be Rowena's daughter, first stood before me? I originally didn't believe in my sister's death. The girl explained in detail and had a face identical to Nye and the Duke. As an uncle, I indeed had the obligation to help my sister take care of her child. But the girl warned me not to get it wrong. My sister's child had died in the womb long ago, and she was a demon who had made a contract with him. I fell to the ground in shock, but the girl became excited. Don't you want to avenge your sister? I thought she meant Kira's grandfather, the Marquis of Edinburgh. After all, the tragedy back then was all planned by that old man. No, my target is the entire Marquis family. Of course, that includes the Duke's daughter with Edinburgh blood. However, if the elven mage dies, humans will also perish. The girl solemnly promised not to harm the innocent, so he agreed to cooperate with her, for his sister, and for that unborn child. But how could one trust a demon's words? Now he was becoming more and more confused. Cosette, as a noble lady, now not only had a tarnished reputation, but was also kicked out of the Duke's mansion. Have you really put my sisters and my revenge as the top priority? Unexpectedly, his questioning was ruthlessly interrupted. Her tomato-colored eyes were full of displeasure. Are you doubting me now? Didn't we agree to have the same goal? Don't overthink it. Everything is under my control. She's been kicked out, yet still stubborn. But the Marquis also knew now was not the time to fall out. If he wanted to avenge his sister, he must endure. When only Cosette was left in the room, she no longer had her previous confidence. As long as Beatrice's energy remained, her black magic couldn't take effect at all. She originally wanted to stay at the Duke's mansion to find the elven soul eater, but now it seemed she had to attack head-on. He just accidentally dropped his fork, and he was so scared he broke out in a cold sweat. His father would surely scold him for not knowing etiquette. Unexpectedly, the usually cold man's first reaction was to ask if he was hurt. Even his sister found it strange, actually chatting with father during meals. Although it was all about work, in his memory, this had never happened before. Jack was dumbfounded on the spot. At this moment, the butler came in panic to report. There was a gunpowder explosion at Aunt's mansion. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the warehouse was damaged. The Duke needed to send people over for repairs. Kira immediately realized this must be Cosette causing trouble again. Sitting in the carriage heading to Aunt's house, an idea sprouted in Kira's mind. If she wanted to rest, Cosette had to completely disappear. But she didn't expect the little green tea to be so thick-skinned. Still able to pretend nothing happened and visit Aunt. But she just had to expose her faults. How come you don't participate in social activities after returning to the Marquis's mansion? Cosette shrugged helplessly. I haven't been feeling well lately. I don't like participating in those boring events. That's a nice way of putting it. Now who would risk offending the Duke's mansion? By inviting her? And if you're not feeling well, why not rest at home? Why come to Aunt's place? She must be up to no good. She quickly approached her. By the way, after you left, Father has become much gentler, thanks to your influence. Hearing this, Cosette's expression instantly changed. She looked at Kira warily, her voice even trembling as she spoke. Father has become gentler? You must be very happy. Isn't that what you've always wished for? Tired of listening to her nonsense, Kira and Joseph left. She had only probed a little, and Cosette was already flustered. She must be hiding some unknown secret. Fortunately, she came and seemed to think the gunpowder explosion was really just an accident and didn't intend to investigate further. But she still suggested investigating before deciding. It turned out Aunt would order gunpowder from the same merchant group every year. So Cosette probably bribed the vendor. But why go to such lengths just to destroy the warehouse? At this moment, the butler revealed a crucial piece of information. When Miss Cosette came to visit the madam today, she seemed quite normal. She even suggested the madam move to the side house for safety reasons, so the mansion could be repaired before winter. Though it seemed like concern, Kira still found it suspicious, deliberately destroying the old house, then urging Aunt to repair it quickly. Could she be planning to plant spies among the workers? But for what purpose? She suddenly thought of something. Cosette was looking for the elven stone. The girl he liked was going to find someone else. He spoke up for the first time ever. Can't you not go? He even humbly tugged at her clothes. Am I not enough? Please don't go to someone else. Kira stood there stunned. Not long ago, they gathered all the workers involved in repairing the house. Together, they nearly killed the Empire's elven mage. Yet these people still had the nerve to beg for mercy. In this situation, you still dare to ask me to spare your lives? In principle, you should all be sentenced to death. However, I can be merciful and spare your lives. The workers seemed to see hope. They excitedly asked if it was true. Kira smiled faintly. Of course, but only for the first person to confess. Afterwards, those people were separated and locked up. Joseph was worried. Could a few simple threats really find the mastermind? Kira was confident. She had promised her aunt not to use torture and not to wrongly accuse any innocent person. Now that they were locked up separately, unable to communicate, all she had to do was wait. Someone would surely come forward. Sure enough, 2 days later, someone couldn't handle the pressure. He confessed that there were 3 participants. Their backgrounds were clean, but they had one thing in common. They weren't very wealthy. They did these things for money. Moreover, the client only asked them to confirm if the land's floor plan matched the actual structure. But strangely, this client was very mysterious. Even the 3 of them had never seen them. Who the mastermind was obvious. Even Joseph guessed it was Cosette's doing, but they had no evidence. Looking at the confession in her hand, Kira fell into deep thought. To find the Elven Stone, Cosette had started to use any means necessary. If Viscount Bane knew her true purpose, even if humans and demons went to war again, he wouldn't care. No, she had to tell Erez about this now. But just as she was about to get up, Joseph stopped her. Are you going to find the young mage? Is it because I couldn't help you, so you want to find someone else? Can I go instead? Kira stood there stunned. The usually confident man was now begging her so humbly. She stepped forward and covered his hand. He had already helped her a lot these 2 days. She was grateful. But regarding the human-demon war, she really didn't want Joseph to get involved anymore. She knew very well, if at this moment she told him about her past life experiences, this person would undoubtedly believe her, even willing to sacrifice himself to protect her. But she didn't want that kind of sacrifice. Once in her past life was enough. She didn't want him to be involved in her conflict with Cosette again. So, she was sorry. He couldn't believe it at all. The lifesaver who had helped him many times was actually a demon, just like Cosette. Despite Erez's constant explanations that the demon world, like the human world, had good and bad, Kira couldn't hear a word of it. She shouted at Erez to get out. If he stayed any longer, she didn't know what she might do. Why won't you give me a chance to explain? Just because I'm a demon. All those experiences they had shared, the desserts they had eaten, the festivals where they had met by chance, and all those words they had spoken, so many little moments were truly beautiful. The thought of losing them made him realize how much it hurt. He decided to leave first. No matter what, thank you for the happiness you've given me. Goodbye, Miss Kira. Following the magical circle, Erez disappeared from the spot. In the room that had returned to silence, Kira staggered, finally unable to support herself, and fell to the ground. She couldn't accept that she had been deceived for so long. The intense emotional turmoil even made her body retch uncontrollably. She opened the window, quickly ran to the balcony, and took big gulps of the fresh air outside. If she had been holding a sword at that moment, she might have actually stabbed Erez. But for some reason, the thought of him being hurt made her feel sad again. She helplessly fell to her knees. What should she do? Who could tell her? At that moment, there was a rustling sound from the nearby bushes. Somehow, Joseph was standing there. He leaped over, landing right in front of the girl. At this moment, all of Kira's pretenses were gone. She threw herself into the man's embrace. Cry, I didn't see anything. From that day on, Kira kept herself locked in her room, not eating or drinking. Erez wrote her many letters. She didn't dare to read a single one. Even the Duke noticed his daughter's unusual behavior. He asked Roger to take the young lady out to clear her mind. But even though Kira agreed to go out, she was still absent-minded in the carriage. Whether it was beautiful accessories or colorful clothes, nothing could spark her interest. She still found it hard to believe that Erez was actually a demon. Perhaps it was because she trusted him so much that this feeling of being deceived all along made her feel terrible. Lost in thought, Red Hair called out to her from behind. The two hadn't seen each other for a while. Naturally, they had to sit down and catch up. Red Hair complained that His Majesty the Emperor had been pressuring him to marry lately. He could only find peace by leaving the palace. How about you? How are things with the one you like?